And good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Welcome to the Night in America. I'm your host, Don Terry Jones, and we have an exciting show tonight for you. Tonight, our feature headline, we're talking about the Iran deal that was struck just the other day between Iran and the United States. And this deal also includes the battlefront right there in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah. And of course, the Lebanese people who are caught in the middle of that skirmish. But right now, what we know so far now is that there has been a deal met. Right now, we have the deal posted on X right now, and the source is CNN, of course, but we got to take that with a grain of salt. Now, there's been many indications from, many White House officials that that's not the actual deal or whatever. But we're going to we're going to run with this right now and use that as the framework right now. So we're going to go run through the entire timeline of the last 24 hours or so about what's really going on. And then we're also going to look at the timeline of all the frozen assets and which countries did Iran had frozen assets in these tied up in these countries because of the sanctions that were implemented on them by Trump in his first term. So we're going to go through that, among other things. We got a lot of things to cover right now. We're going to break down the entirety of the deal. We're going to look at everything. We're going to look at the entire history of it. We're going to review this entire conflict which started in February 28th of this year. We're going to go over the entire timeline. We're going to talk about everything that's happened, all the lives that were lost. And really, what did we actually achieve in this whole entire skirmish? What did we really achieve in this war? Because right now, if you're watching this right now, if you've been keeping up with the news, if you've been reading everything what's going on, we've really have not achieved anything. If anything, Iran has achieved far more than what we've achieved. We didn't even achieve our military goals right now. It just seems like Trump is just trying to pull out as much as possible and at least trying to save face. Which, look, we have to be completely honest right now. This is technically a win for Iran. As much as people don't want me to hear me say this, but this is technically a win for the Iranian regime. We didn't have the regime change that we want. And no matter what you're hearing from all these top military officials, especially all the top cabinet members in Trump's administration, like Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, of course, they're saying that we have achieved our goals by committing regime change, even though the regime, which is the IRGC as a whole, is still in power. So just by looking on this face value, this seems like Iran has gained far more in this deal than we have, actually. So we're going to go through the entire MOU. We're going to read through the entire thing. Once we go down memory lane and just get a clear understanding of how we really got here and where we're at right now and what is the prediction of the future. So is this deal really going to hold up like it's supposed to? That's the bigger question right now. We have the deal. It already was signed today by the president of Iran and also the president of the United States. But can this deal really hold? Can we really trust Israel to play nice? Because they were not asked to be part of this arrangement. They were not asked to be part of the negotiations. And probably for good reason. Trump took it upon himself to exclude Israel from the negotiations and allowed the U.S. and Iran to exclusively negotiate by themselves. So whatever deal was reached between the U.S. and Iran, Israel would just have to abide by whatever the deal is. Like Trump has already upped his rhetoric now towards Israel. Now it seems like to me now he's, even though he's still technically a hardcore Zionist, let's not get nothing mistaken. He seems to be now in a predicament to where now he's no longer going to take any shit from Israel, because now he's, we've read many articles on here about him and Netanyahu on the phone having a back and forth about disagreements about what really to do with Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis, pretty much all this debacle that's going on in the Middle East. Trump wants to make a deal. He wants peace. Netanyahu and all the Israelis, they want war. They want to destroy their enemies. This is why this deal technically is a loss to them far more than it's a loss. Well, it's a loss to us too as well, because we had clear military goals and we didn't achieve them. Yes, we destroyed their Navy. Yes, we destroyed their Air Force, but they were never known to have any of those. What I mean by when I say they've never been known to have any of those, they're never known for their Navy or their Air Force. No, what Iran is known for is its massive amounts of ballistic missiles along with their drone production. So they're not really known for a Navy or an Air Force. So even if we destroyed that, that doesn't really do us no good at all, because that's not what Iran's even really known for. What they're capable of is the fact that they can build a lot of their ballistic missiles in-house, along with manufacturing a bunch of drones in the thousands, and then they're able to do damage with those two powerful weapons in their hands, along with all the other advanced missiles that they have, like hypersonic, supersonic missiles. So, but to regurgitate to my point that this is a win for Iran, when I say this is a win for them, is because once we go to the MOU and you see exactly what's in the MOU, it just seems like there's more of concessions, more for them, less for us. If anything, we're right back where we started at in February. Not only are we going to drop the blockade, Iran would also drop its blockade, and then Iran is going to start charging a toll fee after 60 days. So nothing was really achieved. But of course, we know we're going to have the bootlickers. They're going to make up any excuse as possible about this and say that this is a victory no matter what, even though technically speaking, Iran did win this conflict. The IRGC is still in power. They have complete and utter control of the Strait of Hormuz. And now they're about to start making money from it. We are going to start unfreezing a lot of their assets, so Iran can start making money again. They promised to never build a nuclear weapon, but they are going to be allowed to have some form of nuclear enrichment for civilian purposes, which, according to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, any country is allowed to nuclear enrich only for civilian purposes. Of course, no nuclear weapons. So that's pretty much where we're at right now with this. Well, we're going to talk more about this and break it down. What does it really mean now? And then we're also going to cover the FBI attempted, well, let me bring it back a little bit. We're going to talk about the attempted, I guess you would say, assassination on the president and everyone in the White House, and probably even civilians during the UFC Freedom 250 event this past weekend. So if you watch sports or whatever, you watch fighting sports, you would know the UFC had a big time event this past weekend that took place at the White House. And there was a plot by a number of individuals, a very vast number of individuals that were attempting to assassinate the president, along with his cabinet members and also many civilian people. So we're going to also dive deep into this right quick and look into exactly who's involved and what were all the weapons that these assailants have, and what were their clear goals. Their goals were very clear: anarchy, assassination. And if you listen to the way these guys speak and about what they really wanted out of this, it's clear that these guys were, some chronically online guys, and they were swept up with all the Epstein stuff, of course. And of course they have some forms of, I guess they're like socialists or communists, because like they mentioned like the billionaire class. Of course they mentioned AIPAC, of course. But these guys clearly were, I guess you could say, like leftists. I wouldn't consider them right wing, because the way these guys were talking, and they were talking in lingos that only a liberal would say, only a progressive would say. So their idea was to go out there and cause anarchy and start dropping bodies. The FBI caught wind of this, and because there was also a family member that also tipped the FBI off to this entire assassination plot, and then they were able to stop it before it even got worse. So we're going to look into that too as well. It should be a excellent show tonight. It's good to be back with you guys right now. We're everywhere right now. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, and we're on Facebook right now. I know everyone right now is watching live right now. You know something funny? I was just thinking this the other day. My Facebook is blowing the fuck up right now. Like I really think like it's crazy to me like how my Facebook is. Like literally, I'm not even joking to you guys right now. I'll look at my Facebook. I'm like 550 followers on there right now. My clips are doing excellent numbers right now. Excellent numbers. It's amazing right now. Of course, YouTube is still the main home. And I want you guys to follow the channel. Well, subscribe to the channel on here and also follow me on Rumble too as well. We can't forget about Rumble, bro. At some point, we are going to start having like one social media platform exclusive stream. Like I might do an exclusive stream on Facebook. I might do an exclusive stream on Rumble, of course, in the future, whenever I get time. Right now, the news has got me so hooked right now because now we pretty much have reached the end of the Iran war. For now, not guaranteed to be over with completely, but for now we are reaching the end. This is pretty much like the end of the war coverage right now. So, like I said, we're going to probably do some exclusive social media platform streams. Instagram, too, as well. I'm blowing up on Instagram as well. I'm going to start doing I'm start live streaming on Instagram. I'm going to start live streaming on TikTok. We're going to start trying to change it up a little bit, everyone. We're going to start trying to do exclusive streams on exclusive platforms. That's the goal. You know, because we're growing already. I can see that we are growing a lot in numbers, and I want to keep the growing. You know, it's a shame because TikTok doesn't allow me to post my links anymore like it used to. Because that way I can let people know where to go at to find my find my streams and find my videos. But I don't know, TikTok like updated the app. It kind of sucks now a little bit, low key. But TikTok's been favorable to me. I won't lie. I'll probably do a stream when I get off right now. I'll do like a after stream TikTok exclusive video, TikTok exclusive stream. That's what I might do. Depends how I feel. Because I never feel like when I do my stream, I feel like coming on camera. But then when I get off, I just don't feel like doing anything else, bro. I really don't. Like I already read like what 40 articles last night. I read like 40 articles. I read like some stuff to read, you know, regurgitate my mind a little bit to get ready for tonight's show. And then I just feel like when I get off, it's like I'm so fucking drained, bro. I might react to this Tyler Oliveira video that he did. This one's an old one. So he went to Poland, for example, and because Poland has this controversial policy over there to where you can't enter their borders illegally, otherwise you'll be shot and killed. So Poland has very strict immigration law. And I was looking at this, I was watching this video the other day, and it had me thinking, why don't we have that type of policy? You know, why don't we have that type of policy? Poland up there has the less immigration into the countries because they have strict immigration policies. And yet our policies are so laxed. We're so easygoing. We just allow these people just to come in because of all these third-world and loving leftist scumbags who, quite frankly, just don't want to come off as being racist or whatever. Want to allow all these illegal immigrants into the country and basically just change the culture of this country, change the demographic of this country. And I look at something like Poland, for example. Poland has the most strictest immigration policies on the planet, and they're condemned by the UN, of course. But when I look at their immigration policies, why don't we use that? That should be our immigration policy. We should be allowed to execute anyone who comes through the border illegally because they're coming into the country illegally. That's breaking the law. I mean, I'm for that. I'm for protecting our borders any means necessary. As you see what's going on in the UK right now, the grape inquiry was just dropped the other day. Okay, and I'm gonna read 200. It's 200 some pages. I'm gonna read that tonight, and then tomorrow I'll probably do a stream about that and covering that about how many women in the UK were raped by Pakistani rape gangs or grape gangs, excuse me. And when I look at what's going on in the UK, look at what's going on, you know, in France, what's going on in Germany, you know, what's going on in Canada. Immigration is really coming into the West and really changing the entire demographics, the culture, you know, changing the entirety of the West and bringing in cultures that are just not compatible with Western society. And we are allowing this to happen because our politicians are such cucks to words like racist. They don't want to stop these immigrants from coming in the country any means necessary. They don't have the kahunas to do what's necessary. And when I see what they're doing in Poland, for example, that right there is just like, man, why don't we have that? Why our politicians are not, they're so afraid to just enforce immigration the right way? Because we have all these cocksucking fucking protesters out there trying to stop ICE from deporting these illegal immigrants in the country. And every time they have to meet force with force, because most times these protesters are not all peaceful protesters. They're trying to agitate the ICE agents into a altercation. And when the ICE agents fights back, dare I say, with extreme force, he's condemned and he's called for his incarceration or even worse, his death. And what do politicians for the most part do? They most part side with the mob, especially the Democratic elect ones. Hell, even some people on the right, the libertarians, you know, libertarians that lean right, of course. They're always going to side with the mob because they feel like excessive force is not necessary. Well, here's the thing. I think excessive force is a good thing in certain scenarios. Because when it comes to quelling crime, we have to be able to deal with this problem in one way or the other. And when I look at how the demographics of the world is changing right now because of so much immigration from the third world into the first world, and all of our women and children are being affected because of it. We allow so many of these immigrants to come in from over the borders from these backwards countries with their backwards culture, and they come in here and they do damage to the country itself. They come do damage to the people itself that live here. They don't come here to assimilate. They come here to take over. And really, we could look at all these. We could literally just be mad at these immigrants or whatever, but we should be more mad at the politicians for allowing them to come in the first fucking place. I said all these politicians that allow these immigrants to come in, no matter if it's through the legal system or through the illegal system, because most times even through the legal system, they come in and then they come in and they don't assimilate, and then they come in here and they still rape and kill. So that's why I'm for like literally just closing the border down completely, probably for the next 15 years. I understand I'm not going to be completely like unreasonable and say that immigration shouldn't happen at all. But what I will say is that immigration should happen far less. And if we are going to bring in the best and the brightest, maybe we should probably just doing just that. Bring in the best and brightest. And then if, say, they have reached the full extent of their job, we should just go ahead and send them back. That's the entirety of the immigration policy. But instead, this immigration system is so broken that people can just slip into the country regardless if it's through a visa system or like a visitation visa, and then they can literally live in the country here illegally and never be deported. This is how some of them have been there for years and they've never been deported yet. Trump was the first step to getting this in the right direction, but he's not the end results. There needs to be something farther than him. There needs to be something more right-wing than even him, because he's not even right-wing. This is what I say. Immigration needs to be enforced by an actual force that's going to be the one to get the job done. Because these illegals are coming in here, they're emboldened to come here. They feel like they're untouchable because all they got to do is say, oh, racism, race is this, race is that. Why are you talking to all this entire group of people? That almost feels like it's almost bigot coded. They use all these produced terms to stop themselves from being deported. And of course, the politicians cuck themselves because this is this public perception that they don't want to come off as being racist. Hell, even some Republicans are accused of doing that. That's why we need to really just stop with this bullshit and actually deport these fucking people. We need to stop worrying about fucking words and actually get the job done. You know, all these politicians, all these cocksuckers that are sit up here, they're so afraid to enforce the immigration policy. It really just sets in motion how much, like, this makes me sick. Excuse me, let me turn that off right quick. It just makes me sick to my stomach because, like, we have the laws. The laws are in our favor. The laws are very straightforward and very easy to understand. Immigration law especially. We have borders. Our borders are to remain secure. If they come into the country illegally, they are up for deportations. When people sit up here and say they have a right to they have a right to a trial, whatever, I say, fuck that. Send them back. They're here illegally. They up here, they say they've been here for years, they haven't obtained paperwork yet, but yet they want these liberal progressives always want us to sit up here and say we need to show some compassion and allow them to stay in the country legally like they've been doing for years and just keep taking what? Taxpayers' dollars to fund their welfare. So they keep being here. Basically, anyone who works a good job and pays higher taxes, they're the ones funding these fucking people's lives. These people don't fucking work for the most part. They don't come here looking ready to make a change. They just come here looking for a handout. And we're supposed to sit here and let these people stay in this country. So I say, fuck that. Fuck that. It's time to stop playing nice, and also it's time to start playing hardball. These next 2 years are important. Next year is the presidential primary. Year after that is the election. We need a real candidate that's not going to be cucked by words and is going to get the job done. And is stop feeding into the mob's mentality and just go out there and just fucking get it done. If Poland could show me that immigration could be done the right way, what the fuck's stopping us from doing it? What, the UN's going to condemn us and try to sanction us or whatever? That's not even possible because, first off, the UN is subservient to the United States empire. They're subservient to us. They can't do nothing to us. We have the power right now, and we should be able to flex that power by showing us what a secure border really looks like. Because if Poland's doing it the right way and we're not, that's a fucking problem. This is why I've said immigration needs to be enforced the right way. It takes the right kind of nationalist to do it. It takes the right kind of leader to do it. We deport the illegals and we secure the border any means necessary, even if that means we have to take a few of them out to do so. That's the necessary. That's a necessary thing to secure our borders. What is a country without its borders? It's not a country. And some people may say that's a little bit extreme or whatever, but at the same time, look at what's going on in this country. This country's going to shit right now, and it needs to be saved. It's going to take real American patriots to really save this country. We have politicians taking donor money from foreign interest. We have commentators, they're sitting there being paid underneath the table from foreign interest. It's all this foreign backing that's going on right now in politics that's really has at heart personal interest over the entirety of the country. This is why I say Well, as you look right, you look left. Some of your best and proudful commentators that you look up to and you like and you love listening to every day of your life. Sometimes these people are taking money from foreign interest. Guys like me, I don't get paid at all from anybody. This is me 100% giving you my political takes. I don't need donor money to go out here and preach to you guys that what is a border and how do we secure our border. I'm telling you guys exactly what we need to do. This country is going downhill and we need to save it pronto. This country needs to be prioritized first and foremost. Going out there fighting these wars of choice for Israel is not doing us any favors. I support going out there and taking over Cuba and making it a colony. I support that. We already did that with Venezuela. I support making South America our empire, or part of our empire, should I say, because that's exactly how we fix one issue. Most of these South Americans that come here, they're coming here from countries that are being destroyed by dictatorial-like leaders who are oppressing their own people and enriching themselves. We have the weaponry and the power to overthrow these people or get these people to play in line with our interest. We could use that to our better advantage. That's what our national security strategy was about. It was about prioritizing South America and ensuring that South America is fully under the grip and control of the United States. So China and Russia do not have any influence over there no more. Only we have absolute influence. And that's how it should be. We have South America completely under our control, and we expand the empire. All this talk about from all these cocksucking fucking third worlders that always say the America's the empire that's fallen. Let's prove them wrong. Okay, let's grow the empire again, like the Roman Empire, for example, like any empire in history you've ever read. The Ottoman Empire, doesn't matter, whichever one. All of them. This is an empire right now. If they're saying this empire is crumbling, let's show them exactly what we can do to fix that notion and prove to them that this empire is not crumbling. Actually, it's growing, and it's going to stay to grow, and our power is never going to dwindle. I know we live in this multipolar world. We don't live in a unipolar world no more. But look, let's make sure we're the ones at the top and not China and Russia. But let's be real. People say we need to basically coordinate ourselves differently according to how China and Russia do stuff. First off, China is going to invade Taiwan at any point, even if they put their arms around other countries like, say, France or Germany, because they're sitting up here because of all the rhetoric that we had about Greenland. They're talking about possibly giving this indication that they want to go do business with the Chinese. But would they stand with the Chinese after China invades Taiwan? That's the bigger question. They already condemned Russia for their invasion of Ukraine, and rightfully so. It's because NATO was talking about expanding into Russia territory, and Russia did not want that to happen. China and Russia have their own objective goals, and they will get them regardless of however way they want to get it. And that meant we can't just sit up here and just play nice ball with these people. I know people keep saying we need to have this more like liberal view of how to do stuff when it comes to, like, you know, foreign policy. No, I think we need to go out there and flex American power and really show these fuckers exactly that this empire is not dying. It's only going to grow more, and we're going to expand more. We're going to have the influence all over South America. South America is going to be under the American empire. We're going to grow our influence in this region, and we're going to hold the absolute power over this region. We're going to show China and Russia what does a real superpower really look like. No, forget superpower. We're going to show them what a real empire looks like, because now the American empire is not dying. It is only rising, and it will continue to rise over time. If the Israelis are talking about wanting to expand Israel to greater Israel, let's expand to greater America. How about that? Let's expand to greater America. Let's make America greater. Forget greater Israel, greater America. Once we have all the power, no one can fucking stop us at that point. Anyways, that's my thoughts on that. So we might react to the that Tyler Oliveira video I saw the other day about Poland's borders being very well secured. Because that just got me thinking, is like, I'm looking at the country. The country is just going to shit right now. We need to save this country as much as possible. So. All right. So without further ado, we're going to jump into the show. It just had me thinking there for a moment, because like I'm just like looking around and just seeing what's going on with this country, and it's just like it's going downhill so much. Hearing a dog bark outside for some reason. All right. Anyways, we're gonna move on right now. We're just gonna get into everything right now. Let's go ahead and see. So our first story, we're going to talk about this attempted assassination at the UFC event at the White House. So the FBI disrupts alleged explosive drone plot targeting White House UFC event, officials say. Signal chats allegedly revealed 23 people discussing operational activity. The FBI and its law enforcement partners disrupted an alleged plot targeting this weekend's UFC Freedom 250 event in Washington, D.C. Officials told Fox News Digital 5 people were in custody as of Monday, and investigators identified 23 people as part of a potential network of plotters. The alleged plan involved using explosive latent drones to hit buildings near the event, force a mass evacuation, and steer crowds toward a pre-staged sniper team, officials said. A second wave was then allegedly planned to storm the White House gate, according to officials. The FBI first learned of the threat on June 10th and worked with partners to secure probable cause for an arrest in Cincinnati, where one suspect was taken into custody. Court documents identified the suspect as 19-year-old Tyson Proper. Damn. So always the fat guys that look like this, bro. They're always the most extremists, man. Well, I should just put them in a cell with Camilla Anthony and just line them up for execution now. That's what you can do for him. According to a criminal complaint, Proper allegedly spent $3,000 of his graduation money to purchase lots of ammunition, guns, extra magazines, and other items for the alleged attack. Authorities estimated that several boxes of ammunition that Proper had allegedly acquired contained thousands of rounds. It is also alleged that Proper acquired an AR-style rifle, a bullpup rifle painted with the American flag, and 2 plate carriers with AR-style magazines. His family voluntarily turned over the equipment to law enforcement. So let's see, go over here. I think I have a video right quick. Sure, where is the video? To this right quick. So I know JD Vance talks about it too as well. So we're going to react to Fox News reaction to this, because they were the first ones to break the story. And then we're going to get into JD Vance's reaction to this attempted assassination, as you would call it.
Ainsley, I'll send it over to you.
Thanks, Grip.
An FBI news alert. The FBI is disrupting an alleged plot targeting last weekend's UFC Freedom 250 event at the White House. Officials telling Fox a network of nearly 24 suspects has been identified with at least 5 people in custody. The alleged plan included explosive packed drones hitting buildings near the event, forcing a mass evacuation and steering crowds toward a pre-staged sniper team. A second wave was then planned to storm the White House gate. The FBI first learned of the threat last Wednesday and then worked with law enforcement across multiple states to stop it. Fox News contributor and George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley joins us now. Jonathan, we're learning about this after the fact. We know that the fight went off without any problems. Thank the good Lord. They uncovered this on Signal chats. What's your reaction?
Well, Ansley, this is really a cautionary tale. The fact is that the government is not the only party preparing for the July 4th celebrations. There are terrorist organizations that are drawn to the same events. If you are in the business of creating terror, there's no greater inducement than these types of celebrations, including the one at the White House. What is really chilling about this is the level of preparation and planning. This was not just some type of improvised device or a sniper. This was a well set out pattern of events to maximize casualties. And we have to keep in mind that under the Biden administration, millions of unvetted people were released into this country. It would be a very dangerous delusion to believe that these terrorist organizations and countries did not use that open border to bring people inside.
Well, I'm reading a little bit more too, Jonathan. This is crazy. It says the one alleged suspect told investigators the goal was to target capitalist elites, billionaires, politicians who received donations from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. The investigation stretched at least 12 FBI field offices. Thanks to all those FBI agents who thwarted this so that nobody was injured and our president was safe. All right, let's talk about Luigi Mangione. Today he will be in New York State Court for a status hearing. What does this mean?
You know, we're going to see a bit about the schedule that will be laid out for his trial. But what we're really looking for now are indications on his defense. He lost a major motion in allowing the gun, his writings, to get into the trial. He doesn't have anything on the table to use as a defense except for a potential mental capacity defense and the traditional insanity defense. In New York, they have something called extreme emotional disturbance, or an EED defense. Notably, one of his lawyers actually used that defense successfully in a criminal case. Now, the key about that is you can go for insanity, which is tough, and I just don't see it being successful here, or you can go for an ED, which would knock it down to a misdemeanor. That's what you really get from it. But what is most important is that if they make those types of defenses, they can bring in a lot of his dislike for the healthcare industry. This could be an effort to sort of play on the jury. The healthcare industry is not real popular, and it would allow them to talk more about his grievances from his own involvement with that industry.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. The healthcare industry not really popular, and we live in New York City. This will be tried in New York City. Trial scheduled for September 8th. Given support of Mangione, can you find an unbiased jury in Manhattan?
You know, Ansley, this is always a problem with a high-profile case. Many of us have been shocked, even though we've been covering criminal trials for decades, at the level of support for this individual. What is really chilling is that people are not questioning that he's guilty. They're celebrating that he's guilty. They're celebrating that he was an assassin. Does that mean you can't get a fair jury? No, you can. It just takes extra work by the court and by counsel.
The fact that they're celebrating this homosexual killer is crazy. I mean, Luigi Mangione is not the Unabomber. He's not. The dude's got no emotion at all. I mean, he's just got a bunch of fucking mentally ill fucking women that want to be with him. These freaks want to suck on his cock because like our healthcare system is fucked up, and now they want to go down on this fucking mentally disturbed guy with a bad back. Who did the most stupidest thing of all, take someone's life, and now he's going to be behind bars possibly for the rest of his life. Now, there's a chance if he does beat the law, I mean, these guys are going to get laid like a motherfucker because all these useless thoughts that want to suck on his cock are they're already just useless. They're already useless themselves. They're useless to society. And Luigi Mangione comes from a good background, wasn't that bad of a student according to many people that knew him and according to the stories you read about his background. But Luigi, let's be real, Luigi's a homosexual. Luigi's a fucking homosexual, and the women that want to bounce on Luigi Mangione's cock, they're just as useless as he is. Send them all I'll just say send them all to fucking prison, bro. Let them all have their own jailhouse and let them all live there themselves. We could do them like the Jews had happened to them during World War II. I'm kidding. Okay, I'm kidding. Don't take that as a joke. It's a joke. It's a dark joke.
But this thing is so loaded with these undercurrents of emotion and anger that it's going to be a great challenge for the court and counsel.
I know 42,000 donors have given to that crowdsourced defense fund. He's raised $1.5 million, Jonathan. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It is.
Thank you, Ansley.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
All right, let's get to. So we got some more one right here for about this alleged assassination plot. So this is JD Vance.
Well, Fox News alerted the FBI thwarting an explosive drone attack against the UFC Freedom 250 event at the White House South Lawn last Sunday, and have already taken 5 suspects into custody out of the 23 that were involved.
The multi-phase terror plot allegedly involved using drones filled with explosives to strike buildings in the vicinity, sparking mass panic to drive the fleeing crowd toward a pre-staged sniper team. A second wave of attackers then allegedly planned to storm the White House gate.
The Vice President, J.D. Vance, was at that event on Sunday, and he joins us now to react. Mr. Vice President, thank you for coming on. Congratulations on your new book. We're going to talk about that. But this is very scary. We learned about this, about 30 minutes ago, an hour ago in the middle of our show.
Sure.
Why do you think they're telling us this? Because I know there's a lot going on behind the scenes with the FBI.
Sure.
We don't always find out. Why do you think they're telling us this now? What's your reaction?
Well, I think they're telling us because the scale of the plane attack is so significant. And I think it's important for us to be as transparent as we can be about these ongoing investigations. We want to tell the American people what's going on, of course. But I actually just heard about it this morning myself. And so this is very, very dark stuff. And unfortunately, we're talking about this a little bit off camera, but this is what happens when people turn the rhetoric up so loud that disagreeing with somebody is a cause for violence. That's what the place that we've come to, unfortunately, with too much of our political rhetoric. We got to tell everybody to tone it down. And I hate to say this, but it's true. You see more political violence and violent rhetoric coming from the left than the right these days. Everybody has a role to cut this stuff out. But I think a lot of my Democratic colleagues in Washington have got to look themselves in the mirror and say, why is so much of this political violence coming from our side of the spectrum? Maybe they can do something different.
Well, Mr. Vice President, this is a clear escalation. We know about the president attacks against him, you and the rest of the cabinet. Those threats are public.
Yeah.
But this is going after the supporters. The people that were on that line was UFC, MAGA supporters, and they were the target here.
Yeah. Well, and thank God this attack was apparently thwarted or never got to the point where it was carried out. I mean, the event was so amazing, the sense of patriotism, the pride that everybody felt. It was a very fun evening. So this could have been a very terrible tragedy, but it goes to show why we have so much appreciation for the guys who keep us safe and for federal law enforcement, because these are the types of attacks that they're preventing every single day. As you guys know, they don't get the credit for the attacks they prevent. They only get the blame for the attacks that actually happen. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that for every bad incident, there were 100 bad guys who were trying to do something worse. And thank God
Yeah, but the thing about it is they haven't arrested Antifa yet. I mean, when are we going to start charging Antifa for domestic terrorism? When are we going to start locking up all these Antifa terrorist scumbags right now that walk around every day and call for violence against right-wingers? When are we going to start doing that? When are we going to start charging all these communist scumbags, especially like guys like Hassan Piker, who call for the death of politicians daily on the stream? Probably... Well, I was about to say, I really feel like if we really were where we're supposed to be when it comes to law enforcement, look, don't get me wrong, Kash Patel probably has done far better than any other FBI director in history, but we still do not have the arrest of any and all of the enemies that are trying to destroy the right wing. Antifa, one. Hassan Piker, all those communist scumbags in the same circles, and all these blacks online, especially on Black Twitter, that call for violence against whites daily. He'll call for other blacks that don't agree with their ideology, say they need to die too. Now, when are we going to start arresting all these people that sit up here calling for violence? Because this is not free speech at that point. At that point, that's just a call for violence. But we're not arresting anybody. We're just allowing these scumbags to walk free. We're allowing these scumbags to just they can get away with this stuff and they face no repercussions. We got teen takeovers that are going on right now. Why is the FBI not taking care of these teen takeovers? Local law enforcement's already stretched as it is. They can barely even contain this. And yet, where's the FBI to quell this problem? Now, again, I'm proud of what they did. They stopped a domestic terrorist plot that was about to happen in the White House. That's a great thing. But we still need other things done. All these protesters that are going out here antagonizing ICE daily, they should all be arrested and thrown in prison. They should all be in jail right now with the scumbags that they want to fight there to protect. Hell, if I was president, they'd be denaturalized and shipped to whatever country they want to go to. Well, not even that. I'll ship to the country that we're going to deport some of these illegal aliens to. That's how it should be done. So that's how I already feel. If we're really arresting the people that we need to be, we would be taking out Antifa a long time ago.
got smart and good people protecting us.
It's such a great point. And the former Deputy Director of the FBI, Dave Bongino, in the last hour talked about that the FBI has really been streamlined to deal with attack threats like this. I do want to ask you, though, to react to, so based on what we know, one suspect allegedly told officials that the, quote, goal was to target capitalist elites, billionaires, and politicians who accept donations from AIPAC. Does that surprise you? And what do you make of that when you hear it?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all, because again, so much of the far left rhetoric is driving itself towards violence. It spins people up into these crazy situations where they feel like, I'm not going to argue against somebody, or I'm not going to debate somebody, or even vote against a politician. I'm going to go and commit violence. It is unfortunately an inevitable consequence of some of the rhetoric that we're seeing. But what I'd say too is, what we've done in the Trump administration, I'm very proud of, and again, we don't draw a lot of headlines to it because it's part of this investigatory work, is we're trying to look at the underground networks that drive towards this violence. 23 people do not get to the point where they're going to commit a mass terror incident in Washington, D.C. without some serious funding, without some serious coordination. And we've actually been trying to go with those networks of coordination because it's a terrorist plot. That's not a few guys doing crazy stuff. That is a coordinated, planned terrorist plot. Thank God we thwarted it, but we got to do more of that stuff.
Well, Mr. Vice President, you have a very busy week. You have all the shows for your book, and then we're hearing on Friday you're going to just maybe sign the Iran deal. We'll get into that in just a minute. But right now, our president is in Geneva for the G7 summit, and I think we have some images. We saw him meeting with Ukraine's President Zelensky earlier today. We also showed images of him meeting with the Emir of Qatar, and now he's meeting with the UAE leader who is there. How important is this, especially coming off of what we're learning about Iran and the deal? Is that why the French president invited some of these leaders from the Gulf states?
You know, I actually don't know. I think they're probably invited because they're just important leaders of an important part of the world. But I think what is most interesting about the last year and a half, the underreported part of the Trump administration's policy in the Middle East, is that all of these Gulf Arab coalition partners are coming together with the United States. Israel is obviously very involved, and they're actually pushing back together. You see the United States working with our Gulf Arab partners in a way you've never seen before in the history of this country. And I think it's one of the reasons why we've gotten to the point where we have a very good peace deal that's on the table that we're ready to sign, is because you see for the first time the Gulf Coast countries pushing back against Iran, uniting under the president's leadership, and actually doing something different for a change. You know, what's interesting is there's been a lot of chatter, of course, about this peace deal with Iran. And one of the questions I'm most often asked is, well, how is this different from the Obama JCPOA? And there are all of these answers I could give. Number one, we're not giving them a red cent of American money. Obama gave them over $1 billion in a pallet of cash. There are all these substantive differences. I actually think the most important difference is, you know what those Gulf Arab countries thought about the JCPOA? They hated it because they thought it empowered Iran to be a bad actor. You know what they think about the President Trump peace plan? They love it because they think that it's turning over a new leaf to a new Middle East. So there are so many big differences between, of course, our policy and the previous administrations. But what we've done here is actually unite the Gulf together. That could have transformative impacts, not for the next couple of years, but the next couple of generations.
So, Mr. Vice President, it's clear that they respect the commander-in-chief.
Yes, they do.
And Iran respects our military because of what we've been able to do. Some of the things that we're hearing about, we haven't seen the text yet, but just what we're hearing, that the deal would end all sanctions and all waivers. I'm hearing that it will be downblending, but not destruction of the nuclear dust. And there's no closing of the nuclear facilities. And they hope that there's no nuclear weapon for the next 15 years. There's also strong language about stopping funding the proxies, but it says in the deal that Iran has to use its best efforts, not stop it completely. There's also the $300 billion in reparations that's going to come from Qatar and some of the Gulf states, and then $24 billion in unfrozen assets. Is any of that true? And if it would be true, would that concern you?
Yeah, so most of that is basically Iranian propaganda, and you have to understand what's going on.
Well, not according to the MOU itself right now. That's actually very true. They are getting their assets up front. They're getting like half their assets up front. And then they're also allowed to start selling oil again too as well. So most of that's not Iranian propaganda. That's actually just true.
On here. Okay, so the Iranians have just had their conventional military destroyed. Their country has totally changed. They have a totally different leadership than they had even 3 months ago. And so what is happening is that some elements in their society are trying to sell this deal as positively as possible.
And also, let's not forget, in 60 days, they're going to be able to charge for a toll on the Strait of Hormuz, along with Oman. So it's not all propaganda. It's just that I guess I see what Vince is trying to do, because this was before this video was dropped, before the announcement came, where people can go and read the MOU on X and see exactly what does it really say. So most of what I guess Lawrence is his name, most of what he just read is actually true. It's not Iranian propaganda. That's actually just, it's in the MOU.
To their domestic audience. Now, that's expected. It's frustrating to me, but that's expected. What is a little unexpected and more frustrating to me is that you see certain people in the American media literally recirculating hardliner talking points from the IRGC instead of telling the truth about what's going on. So first of all, not a single cent of American money goes to Iran. Not $300 billion, not $24 billion, not any of the money, the dollar figures that I've seen floating around. Number two, this is a firm commitment backed up by verifiable action to never develop or buy a nuclear weapon by the Iranians, which, remember, that was the whole point of this entire operation, is to ensure not just that Iran wouldn't have a nuclear weapon for the next couple of years, but that they would make that long-term commitment. Now, here's the important part, though, is there are benefits to Iran if they perform their end of the obligation. Not money from the United States, but maybe Qatar or the UAE or Saudi Arabia. Maybe they want to invest in Iran and build a power plant. The United States, our approach to that is going to be, yeah, you can do that, so long as the Iranians are behaving properly. But if they don't behave properly, they don't get any of the benefits of this bargain. And so you see the propagandists are saying, here are all the things Iran gets. And the fine print, which is actually the big print in the actual agreement, is they don't get any of that stuff unless they totally transform themselves as a country. And if they do, that's a huge win for everybody, for the region. If they don't, no skin off our back.
So it's performance-based, Mr. Vice President. But as you mentioned, the hardliners of the IRGC, General Ahmad Vahidi is the head of the IRGC. He was the first commander of the Quds Force under the current Supreme Leader's father. He appears to be committed to his hardlines. So even if a deal is signed on Friday, which you will likely be at, the phase 2 is the actual compliance. And Iran has shown they never wanted to do that. They cheat, they steal, they lie, and do what they want to do. What gives you reason to believe it's different this time?
Well, what gives me reason to believe is that I never believe and I never trust anybody's words. I trust people's actions. And what this deal, what the president's peace plan fundamentally does is it creates a two-pathway option for the United States of America. No matter what happens, Iran's nuclear program has been destroyed. They have no enrichment capacity. We destroyed it over the last year and a half. No matter what happens, their economy is in dire straits. The blockade and a number of the actions we've taken ensures that. No matter what happens, their conventional military has been destroyed and they don't have the resources to rebuild it. But here's the option for Iran. If you learn the right lessons from this, and if you change the way that you react and respond to the United States, option 1 is we're going to change the way that we respond to you. We're going to have a better relationship. But if they choose option 2, which is we're going to continue to try to pursue a nuclear weapon, then nothing that we don't commit to doing anything as part of this deal. So the United States wins either way. What the president is trying to do is actually extend the hand of peace and say, if the Iranian people want greater prosperity, then their leadership has to step up and change their behavior. If they do, great. If they don't, the United States has already gotten a lot from what we need.
As Vice President, we assume you will probably run for president. I know you've been asked about this a lot lately. You said, I'm going to talk to my wife. I'll decide after the midterms. No doubt the president will be supportive. You're 41 years old. Donald Trump has said, remember when he asked the crowd a month ago, he said, do you want J.D. Vance? Do you want Marco? And everyone responded. He said, I think they might make they might make good running mates together and be on the same ticket. Here he is talking about the two of you running together. Listen to this.
I study to see if they like each other. I just find it interesting. You know, it's life. It's big time stuff. I watch them together. They get along great. They have a good relationship. They're sort of similar in a lot of ways, but they're very talented. And I think the two of them running together as a team would be very unbeatable.
Now, at one point, Secretary Rubio, I should say, said at one point that he wouldn't run if he knew you were going to make the decision to run. Where does this stand now?
It stands where we're all focused on the job in front of us. I think the president loves to stir the pot a little bit, and the president loves the entertainment of it. Of course he does. This is what I joked earlier that, does it really sound like the president of the United States to run a televised program for who would be his next apprentice, right? That's what the president does, and he loves that, and it does make this whole thing fun. But fundamentally, I think Marco, me, the entire cabinet, we're just focused on doing a good job. And the thing I hate about politicians and politics writ large is it sometimes seems like in the past, I've only been in politics for 3 years. You elect somebody to do a job, and instead of doing their job, they're worried about the next job. What I said when I got this job is, I just want to do a good job at this thing that I have. And if that happens, the politics will take care of itself. We're only a year and a half into this administration, right? There's so much that we're accomplishing for the American people. Let's do that. Let's win the midterms, and then we can talk about what happens in 28.
Mr. Vice President, one thing I've always appreciated, you've always been candid with me. Sure. Even when I did your interview before you became Vice President,
of course,
you were the only candidate that said, if I don't get picked, I'm going to be a little disappointed about this.
Yeah.
So tell me this. I'll ask the question a different way. What would take running for President of the United States off the table for you? Everybody wants to be president. Every vice president wants the job. It's just the political thing. So what would it take for you to just take it off the table? Something with family, something with God? What is it?
Well, obviously, to do anything, to run for the Senate, to run for vice president, to run for president, you have to feel like it's something that God wants you to do. I mean, I write about this. I think you have to have a certain spirit of humility about any of these things, and you have to do what is best for other people, not what serves your own ambition. You have to, of course, have the buy-in from your family. But fundamentally, man, I'll be candid with you because I always am.
Vance also appeared on The View, too. We're going to react to that, too, as well. His exchange with Whoopi Goldberg, of course. God. Can that woman just get the fuck off the screen already? Man, it's hard to look at her fucking face sometimes. But yeah, apparently him and Whoopi had an exchange or whatever. Of course, Whoopi Goldberg's a black supremacist, so she has to always bring up the black supremacist talking points. So
the way that I make decisions, and this is maybe I'm just different from other politicians like this, I don't like plot things out. I make the decisions that are right in front of me. I try to do as well as I can, and then I figure it out when I've got to make a new decision. Because I don't have to make that decision, I just haven't thought about it that much.
That's fair. Let's talk about your book for a second, Vice President. And we were talking before you came on. This is a great book about finding your faith. And I'm a Catholic convert as well, so I've read this cover to cover because I'm so fascinated about it. But one of the chapters you have in here is called Semper Fi, play on the Semper Fi motto of the Marine Corps, always faithful. Sure. You talk about during your deployment to Iraq in 2005, 2006, to the Anbar province, at the height of the worst fighting in Fallujah, Ramadi, you write that's where you essentially lost your faith.
That's right.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so I was raised in a very devout household by, my dad would take us to church, but my dad wasn't always in my life, right? I grew up a big chunk of my early childhood without my dad as a constant presence. My grandmother didn't really take us to church, and I don't think I was, in a lot of ways, properly formed in my faith. And so while I believed that Jesus was the Son of God, and I cared a lot about it, I got to Iraq, and that faith just collided with reality. I felt like God wasn't speaking to me anymore. There was sort of violence all around us. I was dealing with these Iraqi poll workers, some of whom were devout Muslims, and, you talk to them about faith, and I realized that I actually couldn't defend my faith as well as they could defend their faith, so I hadn't been properly formed in that way. But I also just didn't feel like like my faith was really speaking to me. Back home, my grandmother had just died. There were a lot of family problems that happened when my grandmother died. My mom was struggling with addiction very badly at the time, and I just didn't feel like my faith was all that relevant. And part of what drew me back to faith is that I sort of looked around at the Christians that were in my life and the non-Christians that were in my life, and I realized, you know what? All the things that I care about as an atheist, as a person who thinks that he's rational.
All right, now they're just yapping. Let's just go ahead and go to the other one. There's a good conversation about faith, but it's like we're on the subject about this UFC terrorist plot. So let's just continue on with that.
Bill, thank you. Good morning. Stop cold. FBI Director Kash Patel used those words to describe the quick-thinking action of agents and other law enforcement to prevent a planned attack on a White House event. This is the Faulkner Focus. Good morning. I'm John Robertson for Harris. D.C. officials told Fox News that the UFC Freedom 250 event in D.C. this past weekend was the target of a two-wave terror plot. The FBI arrested multiple people across several states, including 2 from California, charged with conspiracy to commit murder. About 85,000 tickets were made available for fans to watch the event at the 52-acre Ellipse Park just south of the White House. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance earlier on Fox.
This is very, very dark stuff. This is what happens when people turn the rhetoric up so loud that disagreeing with somebody is a cause for violence. That's what the place that we've come to, unfortunately. I think a lot of my Democratic colleagues in Washington have got to look themselves in the mirror and say, why is so much of this political violence coming from our side of the spectrum? Maybe they can do something different.
Justice correspondent David Spott following the story. He's here with us in Washington. Good morning, David.
John, good morning to you. We're thankful that this did not turn into an actual plot. Those 2 men, as you mentioned, who were arrested in California and are being charged with conspiracy to commit murder, they appeared in federal court in California yesterday. A teenager is facing charges in Ohio. John, around 4,300 people were in attendance for UFC 250, including 1,200 service members. Investigators tell Fox the alleged plan was to use an explosive-laden drones to hit buildings near the event, which could force a mass evacuation and steer crowds towards a pre-staged sniper team. A, quote, second wave was allegedly planning to storm the White House. One suspect allegedly told investigators the goal was to target, quote, capitalist elites or billionaires or politicians who receive donations from the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, known as AIPAC. Now, in Ohio, a 19-year-old named Tyson Proper, according to multiple sources, was taken into custody. Authorities say that he allegedly spent $3,000 of his graduation money to purchase ammunition, guns, and magazines for the alleged attack in California. 2 men, Brian Roa and Michael Allen Thomas, were arrested and, as I mentioned, appeared in court yesterday. Authorities have 23 people on the list as part of a potential network of alleged plotters. And there is more. Investigators uncovered encrypted chats on cell phones where people allegedly discussed attacking the UFC event. And one of the people in the chat identified some 23 users discussing what's called pre-operational activity. And some, John, allegedly planned to travel to Fredericksburg, Virginia, just south of Washington, D.C., a day or 2 before the fight to prepare for the alleged attack. As we go on throughout the day, more of these court documents are going to be unsealed. We're told that we will find out more about the names and the people behind this alleged plot that, as I said when I joined you, thankful never materialized, John.
Yeah, thankfully this thing got rolled up before it got put into play. David Spunk, get back to us if you get any more. Thanks so much. Nicole Parker, former FBI special agent and Fox News contributor, joins us now. I guess it's pretty clear, Nicole, that every time President Trump hosts some kind of an event, it's going to be a potential target.
You're exactly right, John, and this was no different.
I'm not gonna lie to you, that is actually correct. It seems like every time he's hosting something, someone's coming there to try to kill him. It's almost got to the point now where Trump can't even host a single event without someone coming there to try to assassinate him. Because now it seems like to me, in this day and age, assassination culture is literally just taking over politics completely. You can't go out and have a civilized event anymore without someone trying to, especially if the president's in attendance, without someone coming there to try to assassinate the president or any of his constituents. It's like the times have changed so much now. Back then, assassination on presidents were very scarce and weren't as common as many people think. Now it seems like to me it's happening far more than it's happened to any other president in history. The shot in his ear was the ripple effect. Once that shot in his ear happened, then all of a sudden, assassins have just tried to take a shot at Trump, after next. It's like, bro, we're living in some crazy times right now. And I'm not going to sound very bleak. I love today's times, of course. But it's like, bro, we're living in some very dark times right now. Let's just be completely honest right now. Like, being a politician today is probably far more dangerous than it was back then. I'm ready to bet all my life savings on that right now. That today, being a politician, especially being the president of the United States or the free world, is far more dangerous than being the president back then. Well, back then, I mean, like, they didn't have nearly as much equipment that we have today. This is the reason why all these assassination plots have failed. Maybe all except the first attempt on Trump's life, which was almost successful, if not for Trump turning his head. But I would say today's culture assassination, which I like to call assassination culture, is far worse than it was, years back.
And thank goodness for the FBI, the Secret Service, and all of local law enforcement that assisted in this daunting task. I think what's important to note is that events of this magnitude is not expected. Law enforcement is on edge. The intel community is on edge, and they are looking for those tips to come in. And in this particular incident, my understanding is that a relative heard a family member speaking about their desire to carry out nefarious acts in Washington, D.C., and they reported that to law enforcement. So we say over and over, if you see something, say something. In this instance, they did say something, and because of the FBI, the Secret Service under the Trump administration, and local law enforcement, they acted on it swiftly. The FBI and law enforcement learned of it on June 10th. The event was on June 14th. Allegedly, again, people had planned to go to Fredericksburg, Virginia to do pre-planning. And there was extensive planning that went into this, I believe. But again, if you see something, it is your responsibility to speak up, because we cannot have these types of incidents terrorizing our country. UFC 250 was an iconic event. The targeting of the location was no coincidence. It was at the White House, honoring our country's 250th birthday. Like they said, billionaires were allegedly, of interest. I know Mark Zuckerberg was present. Capitalism was at the top of the list. That's things that these people that want to terrorize our country, they hate and despise, and they want to do anything they can to create chaos, destruction, evil, and murder.
Yeah, let's not forget, too, that 4,300 people were actually at the event at the White House and the White House grounds, but there were tens of thousands more who were watching that party at the Ellipse as well. So the idea of a target-rich environment is just off the charts here. Here's what the Secret Service said. They said, quote, "Our most important responsibility is safeguarding the president and every person under Secret Service protection. In the days leading up to this weekend, our special agents, mission support personnel, and technical security teams worked around the clock to identify those responsible."
These cocksucking leftists don't like to have fun, bro. I swear, they're some of the most uptight people on the fucking planet. These are the types of people to go there and go home and watch Love Island all day and think that's some pure entertainment, instead of watching people get their fucking faces smashed in a cage. Real blood and gut shit. But these guys want to these guys like hate that stuff and think that's like they hate the idea that the government is putting on a spectacle for the people at the White House. And it says that the White House shouldn't be doing anything of sorts. And I say no. They should be doing stuff like that. Every empire in history had a jester type of event. They had the Colosseum in Rome. Why not? Why not have a UFC event especially at the White House for the leader of the free world's entertainment? It gives that almost like that old school, empire type of feeling, whereas you got all the leaders all in the country meeting up at this one event to celebrate the country's birthday. So I say this is a great event, and I love it such. But all these leftist scumbags, they're just so uptight, and they hate America so much that anything for them that we deem fun of the right, which is America itself, these people just hate. Bro, that's why I said being a liberal, being a leftist is probably the most miserable thing on the planet, bro. Because some of these people don't even live that long, bro, because of all the drugs they do, all the, out of wedlock sex they have, all the alcohol they consume. Like, a lot of these people don't live to see their 30s or their 40s or whatever, because they go so hard and want to live a free life, of course, because their religion is not Christianity, Islam, or any of the three Abrahamic religions. No, it's democracy. Democracy is their religion. These people want to worship being freely able to do whatever they want. And they try to lecture you about morality. They don't even, most of these people are atheists. So there's no moral system in their whole worldview. Their worldview is they are the arbiter between what is good and evil. So if they decide what is good and evil, then that's a subjective worldview. At that point, you could tell me, if I were to take their worldview and make it my own, if I was an atheist, you can't tell me what's good and evil. Like, if I say genocide's good, you can't tell me why it's bad. I'm just keeping it real. But that's the worldview of an atheist. Most of these guys will tell you that they derive their morality from the majority. The majority is religiously practiced. So in essence, they are saying they are deriving their morality from a religion, because if they want to go ahead and use the entirety, the totality of atheism itself, and when you look at its whole, I guess, theology aspect, you realize that the arbiter between what's good and evil is the person itself. Because if an atheist is not a religiously practiced, then that person himself is the decider between what's good and what's evil. This is why it's subjective, according to an atheist's worldview, about what is good and what's evil. You can't tell me, according to the atheist's view, what is evil, because it's subjective. If I was an atheist, we have many debates about what's bad and what's good all day long. But you cannot convince me that your version of what's bad is worse. You can't convince me your version of, excuse me, let me go ahead and get this correct. You can't convince me that your version of what's bad is the same as mine's, because mine's could be just as correct. Yours could be just as wrong. Thought I'd give you guys a little explanation about how these people think, because a lot of these progressives, a lot of these leftists, they're all atheists. They don't know what's good and evil. It's just whatever gives them the ick, pretty much. These people really just hate themselves, and they hate being able to have fun.
And hold them accountable. As you point out, this plot was uncovered on June the 10th. That's just 4 days before this event took place. Can you imagine if it had gone missed?
Well, again, the plot was quite extensive, in my opinion. They planned to first use, drones with explosives to attack nearby buildings in the vicinity, and then they knew that would cause a mass evacuation, and then they were going to do the sniper act and probably target as many people as they could in the mass chaos of evacuation, and then they planned to storm the actual White House gates. And so the Signal, chat with 23 individuals. Let's see what happens. I wouldn't be shocked, John, if there were several more arrests that come into this conspiracy. Court records will be unveiled. We will get more information, and there's no end to this. FBI, Secret Service, they will continue to do a full investigation. Department of Justice will make sure that justice is brought to anyone that tries to inflict pain on those who are literally celebrating the freedom of America and our 250th birthday.
Yeah, well, 5 people in custody so far, 23 apparently, if not more, involved in this plot, so I would expect that more arrests are yet to come. Nicole Parker for us this morning. Thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox 1.
All right, so let's go over here. Where we at? All right. So we're going to see the DOJ releases photos of alleged UFC terror plot.
An update to our top story. The FBI announcing it stopped a plot to attack the White House UFC event. The Secret Service spoke about this at an unrelated event.
This is still an active, ongoing investigation. Just because we're done with Freedom 250 or that particular event doesn't mean we're going to stop. There are still suspects at large, and we're going to work it until everyone's been identified. I'd say it was unique due to the numbers involved, the level of planning involved. It was an active plot, yes, involving purported claim to use drones, snipers, etc. We've seen a significant increase in threat cases. We're up 40% this year in threat cases.
David Spahn is live in Washington. New images just unsealed. David, what'd you find?
Well, Kaylee, this is a story that deals with many different suspects in many different states, and we are learning, looking through these documents, that a mother in Ohio had the courage to call authorities on her 19-year-old, and she expressed some concern, and she may have blown this entire case open. His name is 19-year-old Tyson Proper, and he was picked up after she called authorities on June 10th, just a few days ago. This was 4 days before the UFC fight. We want to show some images. The first image, I believe, that we're going to show is a rifle that belonged to her son, according to authorities. The other is a screen grab, several screen grabs showing aerial images and maps of the Washington, D.C. area, and discussing where snipers possibly would be related to the White House. This is all evidence that is posted on an official court docket right now, an official government document. But I will say 19-year-old Tyson Proper's mother called police after she was concerned.
I'm going to let this play right quickly. I'm going to get up and I'll be right back.
About his purchases and communications with people online. It then led them to conversations that he allegedly had with someone named Brian Roa and Michael Thomas in Southern California. They appeared yesterday before a federal judge. We're also told that there is a suspect in Nebraska and one in Missouri as well. So what we're being told here, Kaylee and everyone on the couch, is that this alleged plot consisted of a plan to have drones that were actually armed with some type of firepower go and attack buildings around the White House. And once people left, they were going to have snipers nearby attacking some of the people leaving. This was a serious plot. The FBI, the Secret Service investigating this right now. And as you heard the deputy director of the Secret Service right there say that they believe there are more people out there. Right now, though, 5 people facing these charges. And it's incredible to go through these documents and see what happened. But it appears that it was this 19-year-old's mother in Ohio who really spilled the beans on this entire case by letting people know that she had some concerns about her son, Kaylee.
Thank goodness that mom did that. And that 19-year-old is the one I mentioned who was alleged to use his graduation money to purchase these weapons. Wow, David, thank you for this update.
Bro, that's
Thanks,
crazy.
Paul, I want to pull up that image. So that is one of the weapons.
Guns,
but it's jarring when you look at these aerial photos. Yeah. It looks like an aerial photo of the White House ellipse, and they're plotting where to put snipers with these photos and where drones should be launched as well.
That's
crazy.
crazy.
A couple quick points.
I ain't gonna lie, that's kind of crazy.
Hero. She saved lives. It sounds like. Look, we had cases like this where we would go talk to the.
Imagine using your graduation money that you're supposed to, I don't know, save up for whenever you immediately graduate college, you instead use that to go buy a bunch of guns and ammunition, bullets, to go out there to conduct an assassination attempt on the president of the United States. Bro. That's why I say college is a waste of time for me, because like it's nothing but like an indoctrination. It's like an indoctrination camp. It creates guys like these every day that go out here and want to kill the president of the United States because they think he's Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice. Bro, this is crazy.
Parents and literally say to them, you have a 17-year-old that's going down a very, very bad path here, and you rely on the parents to try to get out in front of it, and sometimes it doesn't work. The kid turns 18, and then you have to arrest him because he's trying to go overseas to fight with ISIS. Secondly, this is going to be the overt acts that they're going to lean on, and there's going to be more. What do I mean? You got conspiracy. For a conspiracy, you need an overt act to show that it was active. Their defense is going to be, we were just talking, we were just expressing our dissatisfaction and frustration. No, when you have the meeting of the minds for a plot like this, and then you take, that's the operative term, an overt act, then you got enough to charge with probable cause. Surveillance photos, things like that, overt act.
Emily, let me just read a little bit more about this 19-year-old Tyson, Proper, allegedly spent the $3,000 I mentioned of his graduation money to purchase lots of ammunition, guns, extra magazines, and other things for the alleged attack. He had quit his job to meet up with people he had met online to conduct missions and recons, and his mom's phone call stopped this.
Indeed, missions and recon. I mean, this guy was radical. I also note that in his interview with the FBI, he immediately gave up the two names in California. There's a 24-year-old and a 31-year-old that we were talking about, Rowan Allen, Michael Allen Thomas, that according to our brain room here, that individual had a prior for unlawful carrying in December 2014 in El Paso County. The same report suggests he may have served time in state prison. And the other one was a security guard whose license expired in April. So these guys had access to weapons unlawfully that had been expired. But the whole point is they were known to law enforcement for various things. And this guy in Ohio thought he was going to go play Rambo.
And they found this weapon on your screen, Kennedy. They also found ammunition estimated by law enforcement to be in the thousands of rounds of ammunition.
Wow. It is not easy to get ammunition. I mean, it depends what state you're in. In New York here, it's almost impossible. I mean, you have to go through a background check, which is a pain in the keister. So that's a lot of ammunition for one 19-year-old. It's also, especially under the Obama administration, they tried to make ammunition so much more prohibitively expensive so people wouldn't be able to buy it. I just want to say shout out to the nosy moms. Don't feel bad going through your kids' stuff. That's your job, and they'll have plenty of freedom when they leave the house. But as long as they're living with you, feel free to snoop, girl.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, my heart breaks for the mom. Imagine having to call law enforcement on your own son and then discovering that this was his plot and this was his plan. I also look at that gun on our screen, an American flag. And what makes me sad is you look at all these young people involved in this plot. This is probably their idea of patriotism because of the brain rot in our countries, both in schools and online, that they think that carrying out, trying to assassinate the president or
Holy shit, her voice sounds like she's trans.
whatever the motive we end up finding out was, that somehow that is patriotic. That is not how I view, or I know anyone on this couch views patriotism. So I think that's the deeper problem when earlier, during the A block, we were talking about the extremism in this country. But they probably think that that's their patriotic duty.
Yes, well, more details coming in by the moment. We will keep you updated on this really chilling story. More Outnumbered in just a moment.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
All right, so now we're going to go over to where J.D. Vance appeared on The View, and him and Whoopi had a little back and forth. Of course, he's making his rounds right now, going the morning shows, talking about the Iran conflict. And he also did a interview with Sean Hannity, I believe. I thought I got it up here somewhere. It's right here, I believe. Yep, that one's it. So we're going to watch this one first. And then coming up, we have the... we're going to talk about this Iran deal between the U.S. and Iran, also involving Lebanon and Israel.
Reasons. This show has invited thousands of guests with all kinds of diverse points of view. And we have been asking our next guest to join us for a while now. So we're glad that he's taken us up on the offer today. Please welcome author of the new book, Communion, Finding My Way Back to Faith, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance.
Let's see how many cocksuckers in the crowd are clapping. I swear, the only people that go here are liberal cucks, men that have to listen to their wives or whatever, gay men, of course, lesbians, and I'm just like, and what, Transformers. These are only people I think that go there and watch this show in person, because there's no reason why you wouldn't go there and see a bunch of old hags talk about, give their political opinions about anything, really. Like, they have no actual analytical points about nothing. They just want to bitch all day about something. They just want to, Whoopi Goldberg and I forgot this other fucking stupid chick's name, want to go around here and start calling everything racist or whatever. Like the views it's pretty much dropped over the years in views. No one even really watches the show. No one really cares about these chicks' political takes about anything, man. All these old hacks just need to go get off the fucking camera and go be moms to their children or grandchildren. Whoopi Goldberg doesn't have no kids at all, I believe, because I'm surprised any man would ever want to get that pregnant.
So, how tall you are. It's very
If you
tall.
only see somebody on TV, you just see their, in my case, giant heads. So hides how tall I am. That's right.
We are the table of big heads here. So
This is a show of MAGA Republicans, right? That's what my media team told me. Okay, good.
Well, we'll find out. Huh? I think you have the first question, Alyssa.
Yes, Mr. Vice President, thank you for being with us. Now, you came into office with clear momentum, but when I talk to my friends and family who supported you and the president, and still support you and the president, one issue comes up time and time again, and it's the economy. Inflation's up, wages are down, gas prices are starting to drop at news of this Iran deal, which we will get to.
Sure.
What can you say to voters who trusted you to lower costs on day one, and will they be satisfied by November?
Well, I think that's ultimately up to the voters, right? I think voters have every right to expect as much as possible out of their elected representatives. We certainly know that we were elected on a number of mandates. One was to close the border, which I think we've done successfully, exceeded expectations there. Number two was to lower prices, and there's a lot of work to do, in large part because of what's happened over the last few months in the Middle East. But as you said, oil, which got up to $120 a barrel, now is at $80 a barrel. That's going to be reflected in lower fuel, lower food, lower energy prices. But there's a lot more work to do. The thing that I'm proudest about most, because as some of you may know, I grew up in one of these towns that was forgotten by the leaders in Washington of both parties, is that you're seeing, that's Middletown, Ohio. That's my hometown in southwestern Ohio. It was a proud steel town. I was raised by a grandfather who was a union steel worker, is that those jobs disappeared. Those factories closed down. The thing that I'm most excited about is you do see a large amount of capital investment coming into our country. Factories being built, construction jobs are way up, manufacturing jobs are starting to catch up. So there's a lot more work to do. I think that we're making progress, but ultimately we're going to make our pitch to the voters in November, and they're the ones who get to decide whether we've done a good job or not, and that's how they're going to vote.
Okay. So President Trump has called affordability a hoax. He said that, not me. He's pouring money into this ballroom of his and the reflecting pool. Oh, don't forget the Arch de Trumpe, I call it, and a White House cage match. All these things. Why is he doing them when you just, everybody knows that Americans are struggling? What is he spending all this money for?
Well, I got to defend the president on the hoax point. What the president said is the idea that Republicans caused the affordability problem is a hoax. And I think that's true. If you go back to the Biden administration, inflation got up to 9% under the Biden administration. Okay. Right now it's at 3.5%. By the way, too high. We're doing everything that we can to bring it back down to 2.5%, which is where most people would like to see it. But we inherited an affordability problem. We're doing a lot to make it better. It's going to take a little bit of time. There's a lot more work to do. But the president knows that a lot of Americans are struggling. In fact, he ran on that. He talked about it, and we've done some things and made some good progress on that point.
He just said he loves the inflation.
What he said, Anna, what he said is that he loves the fact that the inflation is going to come down when this war is over. That's what he said.
That wasn't a direct. Are you his interpreter or are you his vice president? Come on.
Well, look, I
See, the problem with them, they don't give one the benefit of the doubt. They just see an out of context clip and just say, oh, that's not what he said. Oh, he said he loved this. He said he loved inflation or whatever. Bro, I understand right now, since I've been on the internet doing my show, that clips can be taken out of proportion a lot. So I definitely understand that being taken out of proportion happens frequently. So this whole like, oh, that's not what he said. Yeah, maybe if you actually like watch in full context, maybe you could probably understand exactly what he said. Just keep it real. Because these fucking people like this don't give you the credit, don't give you the benefit of the doubt. They don't. They just go, they judge you based off of an out of context clip and then run with that narrative that this is exactly what he said compared to what I really said. It happens a lot, bro, in this game.
What the president said, people were asking about the inflation. They were asking about the affordability problem, which again is very real. And what he said is, I love the inflation because it's going to come down when the war is over. And now, again, we already see gas prices today, $4.06 a gallon, too high, but way down from where they were just a couple of weeks ago. So there's a lot we got to do, but I think that we're doing as much as we can. We're going to keep on working at it. And again, the American people are going to make their verdict, but I think that we have a very credible case to run on, that we brought a lot of new investment. We're building the factories. That is going to pay serious dividends for the American people over the long haul.
When?
Well, Joy, if you look at manufacturing jobs, those jobs are increasing at a large number. Construction jobs are doing a little bit better. So what happens is the construction jobs build the factories, even the manufacturing workers go back to work. That also leads to rising wages. That's one of the things that I'm very proud of. Is if you look at the amount that wages are going up now compared to say 2022, they're going up way faster. That's a good thing. The affordability problem, again, gas, way too high right now. Certain things way too high. You know, rents have been either flat or down for 12 months now. So there are things that are showing signs of life, things that are showing signs of progress. My view, I'm sure you guys don't agree with it, is that we inherited a mess and we're fixing it. But sometimes it takes a long time to fix a mess.
Sonny.
Okay. Mr. Vice President, according to a new report from the New York Times, you were the leading voice behind the scenes to release the Epstein files, and we applaud you for that. And you warned top officials, including top DOJ officials, at strategy meetings taking place inside the Situation Room. We understand that there are tapes of those meetings, that this was a huge problem for the base. The report says you even even floated having Tucker Carlson interview Ghislaine Maxwell to clear the president's name, but you were rebuffed by your people. Why?
Well, I'd say, first of all, don't believe everything that you read in any newspaper, whether it's a right-leaning paper or a left-leaning paper, because as you guys know, well, there are things that are true, things that are false, and things that are totally missing context. Well, here's what I'll say. So, number one, I am, frankly, kind of a conspiracy theory on the Epstein stuff, and that story says that that's one of the things that's true, is that some people called me a conspiracy theory on the Epstein stuff. And I love Susie, but absolutely, she thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist on the Epstein stuff, because I think that it's crazy that you had this guy who is clearly a sex predator who is hanging out with a lot of very wealthy and powerful people. Like, that really bothered me. I don't know what's there, of course. Nobody knows exactly what happened unless you were there, but that really bothered me, and I wanted to have full transparency. What I disagree with is the idea that,
look, I'll just go ahead and say it. He ain't gonna say it. I'm getting tired of the Epstein stuff a little bit, bro. I am getting kind of a little bit Epstein fatigued. Okay, we're clearly never gonna get full transparency when it comes to this stuff. Like, I'm just getting so sick and tired of like people on the left just keep talking about it, bro. As much as I want the arrest to happen and then the co-conspirators to all face incarceration, it's just never going to happen. There's no guarantee that any of the further information that we're looking for is even there anymore, that they haven't already destroyed it. So my best bet is just like, we're going to have to move past this at some point and just, I don't know, focus on something else. Cause like this whole Epstein hysteria stuff is like, we just have to like drop it already, bro. If the files did anything, it only showed that Epstein was a Jewish supremacist. That's all it showed. It didn't show anything else in there really noteworthy, but that we already didn't know. So I just think like this whole Epstein stuff is like, it's just at this point, it's low hanging fruit. You're holding on to something right now that's just completely like just being dragged out by a bunch of conspiracy theorists. We just got to drop it at some point and just move past it. We got other things we need to worry about right now. The Epstein files are done for, okay? They're done for. I just wish people would just get the point, get the memo, and just drop it. Everyone on the left just loves to talk about that so much. They did talk about it all during the 4 years of Biden, or even at first during Trump's first term. It's only now, after Trump's first term, well, after Biden's term, and then we go back to Trump's second term, then people started giving a fuck about the Epstein files. So I just think at this point, I'm a little bit Epstein fatigue. Sorry, I am a little bit Epstein fatigue.
the White House wasn't committed to full transparency. We have to remember, like, I was inside the room when some of these decisions were made. The Epstein Files Transparency Act, the one that the president signed, the one that led to all these files that we're seeing, the emails. By the way, again, sorry, do I have to defend my boss? I know you guys don't always appreciate this, but, you know, one of the things you see in the Epstein emails is that Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump literally reported Jeffrey Epstein to the police. That's one of the things that came out of these files.
They were best friends for about a decade. And remember, he signed that Transparency Act under duress when some Republican women, congresswomen like Lauren Boebert, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, did not give in to his pressure of not signing. He brought Lauren Boebert into the Situation Room to pressure her into caving on not voting for that bill.
So let me respond to that. So
that's all true.
Let me respond to that. So number one is, yes, Donald Trump, he said this. He knew Jeffrey Epstein back in the 1980s. He also threw Jeffrey Epstein out of his club when he found out he was a creep and reported him to the police. That's something that the media often misses when it reports the story. They tell the fact that they knew each other in the 80s, which the president himself admits. They ignore the fact that he narked on him to the police and led ultimately to Jeffrey Epstein's downfall. To that point, Anna, you know the Republican Party. Well, it's one of the things that led to the law enforcement investigation. But on the point that you made,
it was allegedly over a real estate deal that they got into a fight over.
But the email says
they
actually
didn't just know each other. Let's just be truthful and transparent here. They didn't just know each other. They were incredibly close friends.
He reported him to the police. That's what I'm saying. That is objectively true. But Anna made another point that I would be, if I may. Anna made a very important point. This question about, did Donald Trump release these files only under duress from Republicans? And Anna, you know the Republican Party probably better than I do. The idea that Donald Trump runs around afraid of Republican congressmen as opposed to the other way around is kind of crazy.
But
because the Republicans control the House and the Senate, particularly the Senate, you need the Republican sign-off. What the president did is, look, I will say this. Again, I was in there in the meetings. He was very frustrated that the Democrats were making this about him when he's like, look, I threw the guy out of my club. I am the guy who reported him to the police, or one of the people who reported him to the police. The president was frustrated about that, absolutely. But he eventually came to say, you know what? Let's just get everything out there. Let's have this out in the public. And he actually called the senators. I was there. He called the senators and said, you know what? Pass this bill. I'll sign it. And that was it.
Let me follow up briefly. Let me follow up briefly.
Yes.
It sounds like you believed that there would be men in the files who would be held accountable, rightfully so. And
you know, it's just how it sounds. It's like men. You know, this bitch right here is clearly a fucking hardcore feminist right here. I dislike her already on a personal level. But of course, they just sound like the way she said that. She has an axe to grind with the men. Now, of course, what happened to some of these women were very egregious, but some of these bitches right here they have an axe to grind because they're hardcore feminists, bro. They hate men. They're misandrist. They hate us, bro. Like, that's their only fucking, pretty much like their silver lining in this stuff. Yeah, there were little girls affected by this, but look, let's be real. A lot of these women that are getting involved when it comes to this Epstein hysteria stuff, a lot of them are hardcore feminists that already hated men already it is, and they just want to demonize men some more. So pretty much they turn this travesty into basically their axe to grind with men. It's just the truth.
The American people are with you on this. Why haven't we seen the release of over 2.5 million additional Epstein file documents? It seems like you are someone that is on the right side of history on this.
So we released, I think it's 6 million files or 6 million pages of documents. My understanding is the 2.5 million, Sonny, I'm going to check on this to make sure, but my understanding is that a lot of those are duplicates of things that have already been released. So we're not holding anything back. Some of those things are like the courts have to order you to release them. So that was one thing that we confronted. You talk about this situation in meetings is, yeah, there's a big bunch of files that existed, I think in the Southern District of New York, or maybe it was some other jurisdiction, but we were like, we want to release these files, but you need the court approval in order to release the files. Sometimes we would apply to release the files and the courts would say no. So those particular documents, I would need to actually know exactly what you're talking about.
3.5 million documents were released, and my understanding is 2.5 million have not been released.
Those may have been the ones that are under court too. I don't know what the documents you're talking about, but I'm telling you,
let me go to break.
Sure.
Let me go to break.
They're trying to. Okay, so. All right. I contemplated I should watch this one right here, but it's like I kind of already getting annoyed, bro. I hate The View, bro. These bitches are so insufferable, bro. Oh gosh, bro. I think we're just gonna move to the Iran stuff right now because I don't think I can take it no more, man. Let's go. So we're just gonna move into our main story tonight. We're gonna talk about the Iran deal right now because I can't take it no more, man. Fuck, bro. I really despise these fucking women, man. Really, bro. I just can't stand listening to them, man. They're the most annoying fucking bitches on the fucking planet, bro. The most annoying bitches on the planet. I'm just making sure, make sure everything's good. Make sure the stream is good. Anyways, our main story tonight, we're talking about this Iran deal. So what to know about the U.S.-Iran Framework Agreement? The full text of the deal that could pave the way to ending the war has not been published. Initial details suggest that it defers the most continuous issues. The United States and Iran have reached a preliminary agreement to cease hostilities for 60 days and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, paving the way to future talks that could ultimately end their months-long war. The full text of the agreement has not been published, but emerging details suggest that some of the most difficult issues, including the fate of Iran's nuclear program, have been deferred to future rounds of negotiations. The framework commits the United States to begin dismantling its naval blockade of Iran while Iran will clear mines in the Strait of Hormuz and reopen the vital waterway to shipping. According to officials briefed on the document, in effect, that would return the situation to the status quo in late February when the war begun. Like I mentioned this earlier, it's just pretty much gone right back to how we were in February. Only now, the only difference is now Iran is going to control the strait completely and start getting paid from it. So the entirety of this months-long conflict that pretty much, what you could sum up the months-long conflict was a lot of bombing happened, a lot of top military and high-ranking officials have died, and the only thing we've got out of it is pretty much destroying what? Their Navy, their Air Force that they're not even known for. Meanwhile, Iran has gained far more from this conflict than we've gained from this conflict. Who announced the agreement? The United States and Iran, alongside Pakistan, which has been playing the role of mediator, all said on Sunday that an agreement had been reached, although they used varying language to describe it. President Trump said in a post on Truth Social that This great deal will bring peace and security to the whole region. Iran's Supreme Leader, National Security Council, described the agreement as a memorandum of understanding. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan said that the United States and Iran had committed to an immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon, a point that was also emphasized by Iranian officials. Fighting erupted in Lebanon between Israel and Hezbollah, the Iran Black militia, soon after the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran begun in late February, and has been a key sticking point in the U.S.-Israel talks. Neither Israel nor Hezbollah, the rearing sides in Lebanon, is a party to the agreement between the United States, and Iran. It is unclear how the new deal will affect the fighting there. Although Israeli officials on Monday rejected the prospect of any military withdrawal from Lebanon. So it's already clear right there. You see Israel's already like not wanting to commit to this agreement, the MOU, because they feel like the conflict that they have with Hezbollah is separate between what's going on between the U.S. and Iran. Even though Iran's made it very clear they would not commit to any form of a deal unless the fighting in Lebanon stops right now. And Trump wants to have a deal happen. This is why him and Netanyahu have been going back and forth heatedly on private phone calls between each other, and it's being leaked out to the press. So it's very clear that there is a disconnect between Israel and the United States. Trump wants a deal. Okay, he wants this to be over with. He wants the conflict and the fighting to stop. Israel wants the fighting to continue because they want to basically wipe out Hezbollah completely and take over Lebanon. So that's pretty much where the disagreements is coming on at about this part. But right now it's very clear, according to the framework, that Lebanon is part of the agreement and Israel would just have to suck it up. Let's go over here. So we go to Rerum. Breaking. President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf have electronically signed a memorandum of understanding. This was June 15th. This is just 2 days ago. Pakistani's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has announced that a U.S.-Iran peace deal has been reached. He says both sides have agreed to a permanent cessation of military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon. The signing ceremony is scheduled for Friday, June 19th in Switzerland. As you can see right here, if you want to read this whole thing, hold on 1 second. I'll just copy the link and just put it in the comment section for you guys. You guys go, I'll just put it down there. So if you want to go ahead and read it yourself in full, there you go. Anyways, there you go. So I put the entire statement from the Pakistani foreign minister right there, or prime minister, excuse me. So I put the entire statement from the prime minister of Pakistan right there if you want to read the entire thing yourself. So let's go over here. So let's talk about China's. Let's talk about what the beneficiary of is for China in this regard. So China is a major beneficiary of this agreement. The push to build out and diversify energy networks is going to continue long after the war ends. And China is poised to benefit most from the expected boom in renewables. It is leagues ahead of the rest of the world in producing wind turbines, high voltage cables, transformers, solar panels, batteries, software to manage energy flows, and more. China's increasing role ensuring that other countries have a dependable supply of energy amplifies its strategic influence and importance. China looks to be an out and out winner. Analysts from Wood Mackenzie, a global energy consulting firm, concluded. The Trump administration's aggressive push to halt renewable energy projects, even paying companies to cancel wind forms means the United States is essentially withdrawn from this global competition and ceding the industry and technological advantages to its biggest rival. The economic advantages are reinforced by geopolitical ones. The war has deepened the wedge between the United States and longtime allies in Europe, providing another opening for China to enlarge its role as an international leader. So, this is technically bad for us because China is going to benefit more from this now that everything is going back to the status quo before this conflict started. Not only they're going to get their oil and energy now from Iran, they're going to probably see more of an uptake now that all of the sanctions are going to be lifted on Iran too. So they can expect probably higher shipments in larger amounts now from Iran, and now they're going to pretty much grow as a whole from it. So their energy departments are going to really see a high uptake, basically because now there's no sanctions that are stopping them from doing larger and more lucrative deals with Iran now going forth. And now with us also agreeing to pull out of the Middle East, which is not a good look at all, this basically just kind of puts us in a bind and it helps Iran and really Russia too as well grow more. So let's go right here. Trump-Iran deal allows Tehran to immediately sell oil. This is what I mean earlier about how much, like, there's going to be better deals to negotiate between China and Iran right now. This is obviously the main one. This is an exclusive article that was from the Wall Street Journal. The agreement also waives banking and transport sanctions to facilitate transactions and early financial benefit. The U.S. will allow Iran to immediately begin selling oil and fuel under the deal to end the war, offering Tehran an early financial incentive to wind down the conflict. People familiar with the agreement said. The provision of waivers of sanctions on oil sales takes effect immediately upon signing the agreement this week and also covers necessarily services including banking, transportation, and insurance needed to facilitate the sales, the people said. United Against Nuclear Iran, a nonprofit, said an Iranian supertanker carrying crude oil, Diona, had left the Shabaha, I believe that's pronounced it, Shabaha port, crossed the U.S. blockade and was sailing out of the Gulf of Oman on Tuesday with its location tracker active. It was the first such transit since the start of the U.S. blockade in April. Shortly afterward, a second supertanker, Hero 2, also crossed the blockade. According to the nonprofit and ship tracking data for marine traffic. A draft of memorandum of understanding reviewed by the Wall Street Journal lays out the oil sales along with the promise after further negotiations down the road of extensive sanctions relief, release of frozen assets, and billions of dollars in reconstruction funding. So not only is Iran going to be able to make money off the strait, now they can immediately start selling their oil again and really start prospering and start growing, probably even far better than the deal they got from Obama. It's probably even far better deal than they got from Obama, arguably. See where Iran's billions of dollars in frozen assets are held. So let's go through this right quick. So as you can see, they have $2 billion in frozen assets here in America, Luxembourg, $2 billion, 15 million in Iraq, Qatar, $6 billion, Oman, $1 billion, India, $7 billion, China, $20 billion to $50 billion, and Japan, $3 billion, and South Korea, $7 billion. So all these right here were all frozen assets of Iran were over the years. Now all that's supposed to be released now, according to this memorandum of understanding. Of course, if Iran follows through on all their agreements, which they've already have, the strait's already open now. Ships are traveling through like normal again. Iran is already promising not build a nuclear weapon, and they plan to use their nuclear enrichment program for civilian purposes only. So now Iran's pretty much basically doing exactly what they're asked for by the United States, and now the United States is fulfilling their promises by releasing their assets. They get half of that up front. The other half is going to be later after negotiations take place about their nuclear program. Trump is losing the hawks who once defended the Iran war. This is even funny right here. So a lot of the extreme hawks of the crowd are not happy about this. A lot of the the Lindsey Grahams, the Ben Shapiros, the Josh Hammers, the Mark Levins, all these guys right here, they supported us going to fight Iran for Israel's sake. Now they seem to just go ahead and just pretty much have turned on Trump. Now they seems to be kind of against the president right now, because instead of destroying the Iranian regime completely and crippling them and taking out the IRGC and actually executing regime change like it's supposed to be, he decides to make a deal that, quite frankly, is great for Iran. But all these hawks apparently are not happy about this, and they're not happy about what this deal entails. This entails that Iran gets way better incentives than they had before the start of the conflict. Because remember, it was Scott Basson's idea to cripple Iran through their currency. By crashing their currency, we hurt them economically, and really what led to that massive protest that took place early this year. Now that was quelled by the IRGC and handled, there was no other way besides just to go there and militarily start a conflict. Instead of just negotiating like a good country would, we decided to go there and start participating with Israel and start bombarding them and start a months-long conflict that really ultimately led to nothing. And Iran just gets far more than we get. So we get nothing out of this. It's kind of it's an L for the Trump administration more than it's a W. Trump is losing the hawks who once defended the Iran war. So let's go down here. Many of the hawkish conservatives who rushed to President Trump's defense at the beginning of the war with Iran now fear he is at risk of losing the negotiating table, emboldened Tehran, and setting back joint U.S.-Israeli interest in the process. I'm surprised the Wall Street Journal is even writing it like this. Early details, such as reports that a preliminary peace deal eventually could unlock billions of dollars in frozen Iranian funds, have turned once loyal allies into critics. They worry the deal doesn't do enough to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions and offers economic relief to Tehran that could allow the regime to rebuild its missile arsenal. Some Trump allies have expressed frustration in recent days that the administration hasn't yet released the text of the agreement the president announced Sunday. Two influential voices who have privately advised Trump throughout the war, retired Army General Jack Kenney, a Fox News contributor, and Mark Thiessen, a one-time chief speechwriter for former President George W. Bush, have raised pointed concerns about the deal. I can't square some of the things that are coming out of the administration from reliable sources. That's what I find so disturbing. Kenney told Fox News on Monday night. Thiessen called early reports about the agreement utterly disastrous. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican from South Carolina, another hawkish advisor to Trump, has said he is eager to see the text of the deal. I bet he is. There's also a part where he talks about, let's see, where is it? Okay, so here's Mark Levin. When Mark Levin, a Trump ally, called on the administration to release text of the deal, former Trump campaign aide Alex Brusowitz chastised the Fox News host on social media, accusing him of panicking unnecessarily. Levin, whom Trump previously praised for his analysis of the Iran war, crazy to even read that, replied to Brusowitz was a fool. If the president signed a bad deal, many of us who cheered and stood by him and thought that his action in Iran was heroic would be extraordinarily disappointed. This is Ben Shapiro. I guess Ben Shapiro didn't get what he wanted. I guess he did not get what he wanted this time. And we actually have a video of our good friend, Mr. Shapiro, airing out his grievances about this conflict. The popular conservative commentator said in an interview, it is not enough to win the first half of the basketball game. He said, you have to close it out. He's using the basketball analogy. So let's see where Mr. Shapiro is. Here's Mr. Shapiro. Let's listen to how disappointed he is about us not continuing the conflict.
I'm noticing that Mohammed Khalibaf, who will apparently on Friday be literally in a photo op with the Vice President of the United States. I cannot express to you how stomach-turning that is. I don't care who the Vice President is. I don't care who the President is. Leaders of the United States of America in a photo op with a mass murdering terrorist supporter like Mohammed Khalibaf shaking hands 6 months after he blew away 42,000 innocent people in the streets, and weeks after his administration was firing missiles at literally all of our allies in the region and continues to support every terrorist group in the region and is currently continuing to control the strait. Like right now, it is not fully open for business unless the Iranians have, quote unquote, decided it is. The idea here is that somehow this administration and the deal that has been cut weakens Hezbollah. I'm not seeing it so much. I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's there. Again, we haven't seen the MOU for the 1,000th time. We haven't seen the MOU. That's not because of me. I would like to see the MOU. I think you would like to see the MOU. Hell, I think we'd all like to see the MOU. If Israel is not a party to the actual talks, which they are not, they have not been included in the talks. If Israel is not a signatory to the agreement, which they are not, how in the world could you tie Israel's hands when it comes to self-defense in Lebanon while Hezbollah is firing rockets and drones over the border at Israeli citizens? Shall we say that this is not a popular MOU, from what I understand, in Israel? And again, Israel...
This is so bittersweet for Ben to swallow right now. This is so bittersweet to see this right now. The guy right here that always talks about, like, America always has to have Israel's best interest at heart. Always talks about Israel, how much he loves Israel this, how much he loves Israel that. I rarely ever hear him talk about America the way he does about Israel. And he's an American citizen. At least he claims to be. So these Jewish supremacists always show their true colors. Instead of agreeing with the deal was, instead of agreeing with the MOU says and agreeing with the framework of it and understanding that this is getting us out of a conflict of choice that really doesn't really involve us, and we could have just had diplomacy from the jump. Instead, what these hawkish commentators like Ben Shapiro cannot seem to understand is that it's America first. Fighting Iran is not being America first. Okay? That's being Israel first, but that's not being America first. America wants to put itself first. We don't want to fight your conflicts for you. Ben, if you want to go fight Iran, go join the IDF right now. Put your suit on. Well, matter of fact, put the IDF soldier's outfit on. Get you a gun. Go to the front line and be my guest. Go overthrow the IRGC yourself. But do not ask American soldiers to go there and fight this war for you. We fight wars that are only for our interest, not for your interest, not for Israel's interest, not for Bibi's, not for any of the Likud party or the left-leaning Israeli party. And it's funny enough, I got an article talking about that because there's left-leaning Israelis that have a problem with this memorandum of understanding too. But the point of the matter is, it's America first. Ben, it's not America first. This is literally just a treasonous double agent in this country that just wants to talk about Israel all day, how much he loves Israel, and he rarely ever talks that much about how much he loves America. This guy's not a patriot. This guy's possibly a Mossad agent at best.
They were flying jets alongside American jets during this whole operation. Iran was firing at American soldiers during this whole operation. So playing halvesies is a bit strange. If we release funds, or if we tell our Arab Gulf state allies to release funds to Iran, it doesn't have to be American taxpayer dollars. That is us releasing money to Iran. If you unfreeze money to a terrorist group, that is in fact money going to a terrorist group. It does not have to come from American. That's sleight of hand. It's rhetorical sleight of hand. I was not under the impression that you and I would be paying taxpayer dollars to go straight to Iran. But if we press people to release money to a terror state in order for them to continue to toll the strait and to exert control whenever they feel threatened, or for them to rebuild their ballistic missile and nuclear capacities, that is a gigantic mistake. To go back to the 5 standards of a good deal versus a bad deal would look like continued nuclear development. A bad deal would look like continued ballistic missile development. A bad deal would look like funding of terrorism abroad continuing. A bad deal would look like continued Iranian.
You can just hear the seed in this guy's voice. He sounds like a loser, bro. This is what losing feels like for these Zionist scum. This is what losing sounds like for these scum.
In control over the strait and tolling of the strait. And a bad deal will look like more funding going into Iran.
Oh man, this is just too beautiful to see right now. This traitorous scumbag shouldn't even be allowed in this country right now. All right, so let's go there, go here. So we move on after a bitter. We're gonna talk about the G7. We're gonna move on. Details of U.S.-Iran deal revealed in 12-point plan. Timeline of U.S. withdrawal. $300 billion fund Hormuz passage. So this is from the New York Post. Newly revealed details of the secretive U.S.-Iran MOU laid out that it would extend a ceasefire to Lebanon, allow Iran to manage the Strait of Hormuz, temporarily waive Iranian oil sanctions, and establish a pathway toward a comprehensive peace agreement, Iran's Channel 12 reported Tuesday. It makes no concrete promises regarding Iran's nuclear program outside of a pledge never to produce or obtain a nuclear weapon and the willingness to have further discussions about the other details in a 60-day negotiation period that will begin after the document's signing ceremony on Friday. The framework, which would serve as the basis for broader negotiations between Washington and Tehran, and outlets commitments on nuclear issues, sanctions relief, maritime security, and the eventual withdrawal of American forces from the region. That one right there I do not like. The following 12 points were first revealed by Axios reporter who also works for the Israeli channel. Oh, bruh. The document has previously been described as a 14-point agreement. So as you can see right here, and I have a better one right here. So we're going to go through this a little bit more. So we're going to go over to this one. And this one I find very interesting. So Trump weighs purge of Iran deal opponents in his administration. This one is very shocking right here. The U.S. president is considering firing senior officials who oppose a nuclear agreement with Iran, among them War Secretary Pete Hegseth and CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and who is making sure to preserve the president's honor and, for now, avoiding danger. So, U.S. President Donald Trump is considering dismissing a series of senior administration officials who oppose the agreement with Iran, including War Secretary Pete Hegseth and CIA Director John Ratcliffe. U.S. sources told Israel Hayom the debate has been settled. Anyone who opposed it could pay a personal price, a senior U.S. source told Israel Hayom 2 days ago, describing what was taking place behind the scenes in Washington, in the White House discussions on Iran. The person who, for the first time appears to be enjoying immunity is Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Among other things, he has been very careful not to criticize the agreement and also enjoys considerable popularity. The balance of power in the Trump administration. Several weeks ago, Israel Hayom reported on a tense conversation in which a heated argument broke out among some of those involved, including between Vice President J.D. Vance and the president. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, who are managing the negotiations with Iran, support a deal with the regime, in part because of the assessment that the regime will not fall within a reasonable time frame, and also because of pressure from some Gulf states led by Qatar. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and War Secretary Pete Hegseth, with the help of several senior officials at the Pentagon and State Department, presented an assessment that the Iranian regime was dying because of economic pressure, and that intensifying that pressure was the right way to secure its surrender or alternatively its collapse. Last week, a poignant conversation was held in which the decision was made, and the U.S. made a final decision to move forward with the Memorandum of Understanding, a demand by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent not to lift the sanctions, since reinstating them would be extremely difficult. Change the terms only slightly, and the sanctions are expected to be lifted at least in part after the full opening of the Strait of Hormuz, meaning without any meaningful Iranian concession. The president accepted the position of his two envoys and his deputy on the Israeli issue as well. Although Vice President Vance stated in the White House briefings that Israel's right to defend itself would be preserved every time Israel attacks in Lebanon and during the strike in Iran last week as well, he demanded that the president stop Netanyahu and accused the prime minister of deliberately trying to torpedo the emerging agreement. So he's thinking about considering getting rid of John Ratcliffe and Pete Hegseth, who are opposed to the deal. Of course, they're one of the first in his intimate circle, and especially in like his, people that Trump personally chose himself. These choices that he chose apparently are opposed to the Iran deal. I'm not surprised about Pete Hegseth, but John Ratcliffe, though, apparently, it's another one I've never heard just recently come out. Now he's opposed to this deal, and Trump does not like it, that the fact that they're opposed to this deal, and now he's considered firing the both of them. Marco Rubio, on the other hand, he is safe because he has immunity and because he's properly liked and because he's technically good at his job. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth has a history of just, complete fuck-ups that has put the Department of War in jeopardy, and pretty much has exposed a lot of internal stuff that shouldn't have been exposed, especially through Signal group chats. That was a blender happened twice on Pete Hegseth's part. So we already covered this about the terror stuff. So this is from the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. American Jewish leaders across the political spectrum expressed alarm at Trump's Iran deal. In 2018, as President Barack Obama struck a deal with Iran to constrain its nuclear production, American Jewish groups were divided. Those on the right exonerated the deal, saying it left Iran a major threat to Israel, while those on the left were more supportive. This time around, as President Donald Trump has announced a new deal with Iran after months of the war that the United States fought jointly with Israel, American Jewish groups are more unified. They aren't happy. On the right and left, Jewish groups are expressing concerns about the deal that Trump and Iran announced on Sunday night, even as its terms have not yet officially come into focus. Trump has emphasized that the deal reopens the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran closed after the war begun on February 28th. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance also told ABC's Good Morning America that the deal would include significant sanctions relief in exchange for Iran's agreement that it would give up its nuclear weapons program. But it's not clear what concessions Iran has made on the nuclear front, while there are no indications of other issues key to Israeli security, including Tehran's ballistic missile program and proxy network, have been addressed. Though Israel and the U.S. undertook the war jointly in February, Israel was not a party to the negotiations and has come under repeated criticism from Trump for jeopardizing talks with Iran. So even the major Jewish outlet, Jewish Telegraph, is even they're announcing they're not even hiding no more. Right or left Jew, either way you look, regardless if you're a leftist Jew or you're a right Jew, they're all not happy about this deal. So it goes to show you right now where their affinity is. Regardless of whatever side of the political spectrum any of these Jews are on, and they're in unison, they're not happy about the deal, because this also means that Israel's probably put in jeopardy or whatever, according to their own statements that I've read. They're worried about the safety of Israel, not to where like we are trying to pull out of this war of choice, which we fought for Israel, but they're more worried about the safety and the future of Israel, because now that there is no, we didn't really cut the head off the snake. We didn't really decapitate the IRGC. Iran is probably far more powerful than ever now, according to this deal. Now these left and right Jews have come together and realized that Israel now is in danger because of it. So it shows you right there where their affinity is at. It's not with the United States. It's with the state of Israel. It just goes to show you, no matter which side it is, Jews have their affinity with the homeland of the Jewish people. They don't really have an affinity with America. They don't really have an inclination to stay loyal to this country. They have more of a love and affinity with their homeland than they do actually preserving the American empire and ensuring that what's best for us is put first, but instead they're putting first what's best for Israel. So now we're about to go over this entire memorandum of understanding. We're not going to read the entire, there's a lot of sentences, so I'm just going to go to the important parts from each one, because it's like 14 points. So I'll just skim through the most important ones from each one, 1 to 14, and then we're going to get into some of the video reactions right here. We're going to get to when the deal was announced, got some from Al Jazeera, got some from Fox, and then we're going to get to one today from NBC News that goes over the entirety of this deal right now, because after it was signed by the president of Iran and Donald Trump himself. So let me go ahead and grab something right quick, and I'll be right back. All right. So let's go ahead and finish this off right quick. So let's go through this memorandum of understanding. So let's see. We'll go to right here. This is the first one right here. The United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran and their allies in the current war, by signing this MOU, declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon, undertake from now on not to initiate any war or any military operation against each other, and to refrain from threat or use of force against each other, and ensuring the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Lebanon. So that's the first point. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran undertake to respect each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and to refrain from interfering in each other's internal affairs. Number 3, the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran commit to negotiating and achieving the final deal a maximum of 60 days, extendable with mutual consent. Immediately upon the signing of this MOU, the United States of America will begin the removal of its naval blockade and any disturbances or impediments against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and will fully end the naval blockade within 30 days. During this period, the traffic of vessels will be in proportion to the numbers of pre-war traffic being restored by the Islamic Republic of Iran. So that's basically they're announcing they're ending the blockade right there. Upon the signing of this MOU, the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels with no charge for 60 days only from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman, and vice versa. The traffic of commercial vessels, will immediately start, in considering the need for removing the technical and military obstacles and demining by the Islamic Republic of Iran will be instated within 30 days. All right. 6, the United States of America undertakes with its regional partners to develop a definitive, mutually agreed plan with at least USD 300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So basically, it's like a form of reparations. The mechanism for the implementation of the plan will be finalized as part of a final deal within 60 days. 7. The United States of America undertakes to terminate all types of sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran, including the United Nations Security Council resolutions, i.e. the IAEA Board of Governors resolutions, and all unilateral U.S. sanctions, primary and secondary, in an agreed upon schedule as part of the final deal. 8. The Islamic Republic of Iran reaffirms that it shall not procure or develop nuclear weapons. 9. Depending the final deal, the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran agreed to maintain the status quo. The Islamic Republic of Iran would maintain the current status quo of its nuclear program, and the United States of America will not impose any new sanctions and will not deploy additional forces in the region. The United States of America undertakes that immediately upon the signing of this MOU and upon the termination of sanctions, U.S. Department of Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian crude oil, petroleum products, and derivatives, and all associated services, including banking transactions, insurances, transportations, etc. The United States of America undertakes to make fully available for use the frozen or restricted funds and assets of the Islamic Republic of Iran upon implementation of this MOU. 12. The United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran agree that an executive mechanism will be established to monitor the successful implementation of this MOU and the future compliance of the final deal. 13. After signing this MOU, the subject to the beginning of the implementation of paragraphs 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11 of this MOU and the continued implementation of these measures, the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran will start negotiations regarding the final deal exclusively on the other paragraphs. 14. The final deal would be endorsed by a binding UNSC resolution. That right there is the entirety of the MOU right there. So we have the entire MOU right here for you guys, and I'll go ahead and post a link for you guys if you guys want to read it for yourself right there. I just pretty much skimmed through the most important parts right there. Let me go ahead and pull this up right quick for you guys. Give me just a minute. All right. All right, give you guys, there you go. And bam, there you go. So if you guys want to read the entire MOU, it's right there for you guys. If you want to go ahead and skim through it and see and read it for yourselves. All right. So let's go over here. So let's go ahead and get into the videos right here.
Let's just read you again that statement from Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who says, following intensive talks, we are pleased to announce that the peace deal between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran has been reached. Both sides have declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. The official signing ceremony will be on Friday, the 19th of June in Switzerland. With the agreement now in place, mediators will facilitate a series of meetings this week. These pre-implementation discussions will lay the foundation for the technical talks and the official signing ceremony. Let's go back to Washington and our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. So despite what President Trump was saying, Kimberly, about the deal being signed sometime in the next few hours, it appears that that's been pushed back to Friday, this coming Friday, but at least the deal has been agreed between the two sides.
I have to put my reporter hat on right now, Adrian, and inject a bit of skepticism into all of this, that we as the media and the larger public are being played. And hear me out here. What has happened today, obviously, is that Donald Trump set a deadline for this virtual signing, which we know was literally blown up by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It appeared, at least, that this was a genuine attempt to derail the deal. Now, I've said before, this is quite a birthday gift, given this is Donald Trump's 80th birthday from his so-called friend. So what this appears to look like is very fancy diplomatic language hiding the fact that this virtual signing is not going to happen today and is simply buying time a few days more. And so what we have is the Pakistani mediators that have been playing a role in trying to get Iran and the United States to an agreement for quite some time are extending a bit of a diplomatic lifeline to this process, given the fact that the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif saying there that there will be a series of meetings this week, pre-implementation discussions that will lay the foundation for the tech talks or technical talks, which is really discussions to get this this memorandum of understanding really agreed to by Friday so that they can kick in the 60-day period following the signing of the memorandum of understanding that would ultimately lead to the nuclear agreement. That is the sort of how I am reading this as a reporter, given the fact that we also know that the U.S. president has said that this will be signed on June 19th in Switzerland, either by himself or the vice president, suggests that Donald Trump is now no longer seeing this as a virtual signing, wasn't able to achieve the virtual signing, and is pushing that deadline down the road and potentially even sending his vice president in order to not only participate in these so-called pre-implementation discussions, but also to get this to the finish line of signing the memorandum of understanding, which he says the White House reportedly has indicated to the Wall Street Journal is agreed to. But again, it's that all-important signing, and it appears that what's going on right now is that the White House, along with the assistance of Pakistan, is buying time in order to achieve that by saying that the official ceremony won't be till Friday.
Okay, Kimberly, I may well be back with you. In the meantime, let's bring in our correspondent, Osama bin Javid, who's on the line right now with us. He's in Doha and possibly can give us some insight into this statement from the Pakistani Prime Minister, who appears, Osama, to be saying that there'll be more talks about talks before the agreement is signed.
Well, after what we saw the Israelis do this afternoon, where essentially all hopes were dashed and the deal felt like it was torpedoes and Iranians would react, it appears that Pakistan and Qatar, the two countries who've been in the mix of things, sticking their necks out, have been able to pull it through, albeit for a later date. It is not the virtual signing that the Americans had hoped for, but it is not the complete breakdown as was feared today. So once again, these really frantic mediation efforts have now been bearing fruit for a couple of times now. Remember the ceasefire that was announced initially when Bagher Khalibaf and J.D. Vance met, and then the extension of the ceasefire because of these efforts that have been continuing. So it appears that now there is going to be a sigh of relief for all sides. There is going to be further detail that needs to be ironed out about the language, but this has also been made possible because the National Security Council in Tehran has in fact voted in favor of the negotiations. Now it appears that now the Iranians have the backing of the hardline elements which were so far opposing any deal with the United States. Still, there is a lot of mistrust between these two sides, but just the fact that there is an agreement now in place, which the National Security Council of Iran, Donald Trump, and is being announced by the Pakistanis while the Qataris were present in Tehran, kind of gives it more impetus than because we've been here so many times before. It gives it more impetus that there might be something in the offing which is more concrete and more reliable.
All right, Osama, let's just remind anyone that may have tuned in the last few minutes that Pakistan's Prime Minister has said that Iran and the US have reached a peace deal. He said, following intensive talks, we're pleased to announce that the peace deal between the United States of America and the Islamic Republic of Iran has been reached. Both sides have declared the immediate and permanent termination of military operations on all fronts, including in Lebanon. But the official signing ceremony will be on Friday, the 19th of June in Switzerland. With the agreement now in place, mediators will facilitate a series of meetings this week. These pre-implementation discussions will lay the foundation for the technical talks and the official signing ceremony. Let's go live to...
Looking forward to the signing ceremony for this one. All right, let's go to the other one.
President Trump earlier in the day. What is the Israeli reaction to news that the deal, according to President Trump at least, has been done? What will it be?
Well, in the Israeli media, Adrian, there is a lot of chatter. There is a lot of discussion and basically a lot of lamenting about what has happened. In fact, we saw and we tracked commentary from senior security correspondents. These are people who are usually thoroughly and accurately briefed by the Israeli security establishment. And they said that instead of collapsing the Iran-US talks like Netanyahu had hoped with that Dahieh airstrikes, what happened was the exact opposite. Netanyahu lost his chance and the talks accelerated, and now there's this deal. This is seen as a political blow to Benjamin Netanyahu. During the cabinet meeting, the talks were interrupted by a call between the Israeli Prime Minister and the U.S. President, as well as the Israeli Minister of Defense and his American counterpart. Even those phone calls did not derail the train that had apparently already left the station. The deal has been cut, and now, according to the wording that we're seeing, Israel is expected to comply. Now, of course, the devil is in the detail. The signing, as we saw, will be on the 19th of June. That's a few days from now, and that's a lot of time to try again, if the Israeli government wants to collapse the talks or to collapse the deal altogether.
Al Jazeera's Noor Odeh reporting live there from Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. For the moment, Noor, many thanks indeed. Let's go back to Washington and our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, a lot seems to have happened in the last, 50 minutes. Marwan was echoing a few moments ago, Marwan Bashar, echoing your reporter's skepticism here about at least what President Trump was saying.
That's right. And, you know, I'm going to apologize and be the Debbie Downer, as we say here in the United States, and continue with that skepticism. And here's why. We've been here before. I was looking back through my notes, and Donald Trump has announced breakthroughs before. As far back as October of 2025, he said the U.S. and Iran were ready to reach an agreement. Here in Al Jazeera, June 11th, just days ago, within the last week, the U.S. president once again announcing breakthroughs and agreements with Iran before there's been any sort of implementation or signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, saying on June 11th, discussions have been approved at the highest level of the Iranian leadership. And as a result, those strikes that the U.S. was launching against Iran just in the last week, he canceled the final day of them. So the U.S. president has repeatedly since then been suggesting a deal is imminent. He said that it would be signed virtually on his birthday, today, Sunday. That obviously is not occurring, and it has a lot to do with the fact that the U.S. president outraged that the Israeli prime minister, the American's ally, allegedly, basically derailed diplomacy with the attacks on Lebanon just within hours of this virtual signing that the U.S. president said would usher in 60 days of talks to reach the ultimate deal with Iran, as he called it. But given the fact that that diplomacy was derailed, my reporter skepticism in covering Donald Trump for so many years is that he needed to save face. And so he's doing one of two things. Not only is he doing that, but he's also trying to do something else he does when he projects in his True Social statements what he hopes to achieve, and that is calm the oil markets. Why? It's Sunday. They're set to reopen in the coming hours. And he hasn't made good on the promise that this memorandum of understanding was going to be signed. So as a result, when the U.S. president in his True Social post is saying the deal is now complete, he's aiming that at the financial market, saying, ships, start your engines, let the oil flow. That is a direct message to try and calm the financial markets, keep the price of oil down, because he knows that if that price goes up again, because he has failed to accomplish what he said would be accomplished, that this is going to have a financial impact. So it appears, in coordination with the Pakistanis, that there has been given this diplomatic lifeline that will allow now for this, what was supposed to be a virtual signing on Sunday, to happen in Switzerland on June 19th, which I believe is Friday. And the Shehbaz Sharif, the Pakistani prime minister, has essentially said, look, there are going to be pre-discussions before there are the 60 days of discussions. In other words, that really lines up with what the Iranians have been saying, is that not all the terms in the Memorandum of Understanding have been agreed to, and they need more time in order to achieve that, in order to get this signed.
Our White House correspondent Kimberly Halkett, live in Washington. Let's go to Mohammed Val in Tehran once again. Iranian state television says that Iran has forced the U.S. to accept the peace deal. Its official news agency, though, is saying quite a few other things, Mohammed, of interest. What do we know?
Yes, that statement on Iran TV, I think it's Iran TV commentary. They did not ascribe it to any high-ranking official in the country. So probably that's just the normal rhetoric that comes from an official TV. And it is also reflecting the potential or possible mood or understanding among the leaders. But also, on the other hand, Iran's Fars news agency has just said that an official statement from the Supreme National Security Council is to be issued regarding ceasefire agreement with the U.S. shortly. So there will be an official Iranian position announced shortly about these statements by President Trump. And that means that the Iranians have been ready for the two tracks. They have always been saying that they are ready for war as they are ready for peace. I'm saying this even though I don't know yet what that official statement from the Supreme National Council will say, whether it is going to agree and accept what President Trump has just announced, or whether it is going to say something contrary to that. But the understanding is that this delay and this subsiding of the war rhetoric over the last couple of hours after the Iranians announced that the finger is on the trigger and that the response is coming shortly, those are Iranian leaders saying that just a few hours ago. Now there is some hushing of this language, and we have talks. We have the Iranians saying to the news agencies that the leaders here are discussing these statements by the Americans. So understandably, there is something going on, not just the war rhetoric, not probably the strikes, something related to the peace deal. We don't know what it is, but it is something different from the language of just a few hours ago.
And Mohammed, while you've been speaking to me, so you won't have seen it, Iran's deputy foreign minister, according to Newswires, has said that the immediate and permanent end to the war and military operations on various fronts, including Lebanon, will be announced starting tonight. He's also quoted as saying that from tonight, the end of the U.S. naval blockade against Iran will begin.
Well, that means that the Iranians have now balanced their act. They have come to the conclusion that probably this announcement of a peace deal tonight is going to be a much stronger blow to the Israeli disruption process than retaliation with missiles. The understanding now is that the Iranians are going to go along with the Americans in this process, and there will be discussions in the next few days, and the two sides will apparently and expectedly do everything to try to make it happen next Thursday.
What or how, Mohammed, will the Iranian public react to this? I mean, anticipation has begun to build, especially there in Tehran, over the past couple of days, hasn't it?
quite so. And let's go back to the statements of the Iranian president today, when he said something very interesting and different to his statements since the beginning of this war. Not very much different, but I mean, it's interesting what he said. He said, we will not bow down to any power, but we consider ourselves responsible and accountable to the Iranian people and their legitimate demands. Of course, by people, we mean all the people of Iran, not a specific movement or group. This, I think, answers to your question. There is anticipation and there is high expectations, high hopes pinned on the Iranian government to come to listen to the voice of reason and to consider the suffering of the Iranian people. There is a lot of voices that haven't even been expressed since the beginning of this war. The huge component of the population who are not only opposed to the government, but also opposed to probably the approach that has been taken over the last several decades in the Middle East by the Iranian leadership, and they think that it's because of the Iranian policies in the region that Iran is suffering the way it is suffering today. So these statements by the Iranian president indicate that there is some listening happening, some listening going on to the people in the street, to their demands, to their needs. Not all of them are on board, not all of them are supporting this war, even if they didn't talk about it. And those who support it, many of them support it out of a feeling of nationalism, not because they support it in principle, even though it is a war of aggression and it hasn't been triggered or started by Iran itself, but they think that Iran could have avoided it has it adopted different policies in the region.
All right, let's go on to this one right here.
President Trump says a deal with Iran is now complete. Moments ago, he announced on Truth Social that the Strait of Hormuz will open without a toll and that the authorized removal of the U.S. naval blockade will go in effect. Let's bring back Trey Yinks live from Tel Aviv with more details, Trey.
Yeah, Joey, a major announcement by President Trump after more than 100 days of a state of war between the United States and Iran. A deal has been reached. President Trump, I hereby fully authorize the toll-free opening of the Strait of Hormuz and simultaneously, herewith, authorize the immediate removal of the United States naval blockade. Ships of the world, start your engines, let the oil flow. President Donald J. Trump, the president making this announcement on his birthday from the White House in Washington. There was another statement released by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, one of the key mediators in the conversations that led to this agreement to end the conflict between the United States and Iran. The Pakistani Prime Minister made a lengthy announcement thanking both the United States and Qatar for their role in reaching this agreement. The Prime Minister says there will be an official signing ceremony on Friday, June 19th in Switzerland. So again, a major development here as President Trump announces there is a deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is open once again. Those vessels that are trapped in the Persian Gulf will be able to export that crude oil from these Gulf countries. The naval blockade lifted on Iranian ports, and these detailed discussions on Iran's nuclear program set to begin. A major development in the Middle East, and for the first time in months, the region is breathing a sigh of relief.
Trey, I want to get into your experience, the conversations you've had with your sources, things of that nature. What does this mean in your mind right now? So we say we're removing the blockade. Obviously, we're not taking all of our naval assets out of the region. He says that he's authorized the toll-free opening, which means that he has assurances from Iran they're not going to try and put that toll on ships. I know that a senior administration official did a briefing a couple of days ago and said, hey, it's
not true,
kind
actually.
of a slow walk because certain countries aren't as sure as others that strait is not mined, and we're still kind of building confidence. So what do you think the first steps of third parties will be, those ships and other countries, things of that nature?
Well, I think that the president getting this across the finish line tonight was very significant because remember, Israel was bracing for the possibility of incoming Iranian ballistic missiles just hours ago. Yeah. And the president clearly got on the phone and told them, hold your fire, sign the deal.
Y'all I'm freaking hungry. Shit. I just got hungry as fuck right now for some reason. Oh, shit. Wanting to stream down now so I get some food.
That's what's happened here. And again, this announcement by the Prime Minister of Pakistan, along with the announcement by President Trump on Truth Social. The fact that there is an immediate opening of the Strait of Hormuz is significant because this is 50% of what the president was trying to get. The other 50% has to do with Iran's nuclear program, and these detailed discussions will take place in the days and weeks ahead. When we think back to when Operation Epic Fury began, there was one goal that President Trump had, and he told us this goal over and over again when we would speak with the president. He said, Iran cannot have a path to a nuclear weapon. And during Operation Epic Fury, not only was the Iranian military degraded, but you also had this naval blockade of Iranian ports that was crippling the Iranian economy. It put the Iranian regime up against a wall in a position where ultimately they had to make this deal. And when we think back a year ago from today, there were ballistic missiles in the skies of Israel during the 12-day war between Israel and Iran. And at the end of that war last summer, President Trump ordered B-2 bombers over Iranian nuclear facilities, Fordow and Isfahan, and buried that highly enriched uranium deep underground. And we have to consider that moment when we look at the significance of what was just announced by President Trump, because this is an agreement between the United States and Iran, but it comes after the United States destroyed Iranian nuclear facilities, decimated the Iranian Navy, took out many of the production lines for Iranian ballistic missiles and drones, and has now set a new path for the region. And that is the hope of President Trump, that this is going to lead to these broader normalization deals across the Middle East. And he urged Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and others to normalize ties with Israel in the aftermath of Operation Epic Fury. Because again, the vision here for the president is a Middle East where there isn't a constant state of war, but rather opportunity and prosperity for countries across the region. And so it's a significant announcement. Certainly there is still a lot of work to be done. There's a big difference between signing and implementing a deal, but this is a major first step toward peace in the region. And the president has gotten this deal across the finish line that will now immediately open the Strait of Hormuz, free those vessels that are currently trapped in the Persian Gulf, and now enter into these detailed negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. Guys.
So, Trey, I want to dig into that a little bit. Obviously, you know, as far as we're concerned politically and economically, that strait being open for free passage is a major deal, and it's certainly nothing to scoff at in the immediate. It's great news. I would say, in terms of what's to come next, does this mean when we say we have a deal, does this mean that Iran effectively said, all right, we're not going to pursue a nuclear program, or does it mean we have a deal to have more talks on your nuclear program and what we're going to do with the remnants of it? Just to clarify that, because, you know, sometimes it gets a little sticky exactly what the Iranians have agreed to, whether it's just in theory or whether it's a little bit more definitive.
Yeah, it's a great question. A senior administration official was talking to a small group of reporters late last week and indicated as part of this memorandum of understanding, the Iranians will agree to not pursue a nuclear weapon, but they'll also agree to this process that will ultimately lead to the highly enriched uranium that is currently buried deep underground in the aftermath of Operation Midnight Hammer to be diluted and destroyed. And remember, that highly enriched uranium is what is needed to create a nuclear weapon. It's what the Iranians said they had enough of to create 11 nuclear bombs. And it's one of the main reasons that President Trump ordered Operation Epic Fury. When we think back, though, to what this agreement means moving forward, we have to look also at the sanctions relief for the Iranian regime. The Iranians will receive some sanctions relief. But according to the senior administration official, this is contingent on the Iranians upholding their end of the bargain. And so they're not going to get any sort of relief unless they are moving forward with keeping the Strait of Hormuz open and ensuring that this nuclear material is ultimately exported or destroyed inside of their country. And so, again, this is a new chapter in the region, and it's not going to necessarily go perfectly smoothly. But the fact that this announcement, especially from the Prime Minister of Pakistan, includes a ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon, which means Hezbollah, it's a new opportunity for the region, and it's an opportunity for the region to look forward and past this round of conflict. And there will be a lot of statements made by the Iranian regime in the days ahead. It will not be uncommon to see officials in Tehran focus on one specific part of the agreement that looks good for the Iranians. Sure. But that is what they do, and it's often how they use state media. It's important to look at the deal as a whole and what it means. And it means that the Strait of Hormuz is immediately open. The U.S. naval blockade of Iranian ports is lifted, and ultimately you are not going to see this exchange of fire taking place across the region like we've seen for the past 3.5 months. And so it is a new step in a new direction for the Middle East. And as the president has reiterated in the conversations that we've had during interviews with the commander-in-chief, he is looking for a situation in the Middle East that leads to more peace and prosperity. You have the normalization deals and the efforts toward a deal between Israel and Lebanon to ultimately disarm Hezbollah. You have the Abraham Accords that normalize ties between the UAE and Israel and Bahrain and Israel and others. And those are really the best example from the first Trump administration of the opportunity that exists in the region. When we first started reporting here in the Middle East, when I arrived here 8 years ago, you couldn't fly on a plane from Tel Aviv to Dubai. And now it's one of the most popular destinations for Israelis and Emiratis. And so you have this situation where there is opportunity in the aftermath. And so, again, the implementation of a deal is very different than signing a deal, but this is the first step toward opening the Strait of Hormuz and ultimately entering into those more detailed discussions on Iran's nuclear program.
Trey, on that point, this news, this announcement obviously is very significant, and we're treating it as major breaking news because it is. And I think a lot of viewers at home might be wondering, okay, good, there's a deal. They've got this signing ceremony apparently on deck for next Friday, this coming Friday in Switzerland. That's all wonderful, but is it a good deal? Assessing that is going to depend on the details of what is on the paper that they're all going to sign. When are we going to get a real sense of what's actually in the document in a concrete sense? Because we've heard assurances from administration officials saying it'll be X, Y, and Z, which sound promising to me. Then you hear the spin from the Iranian regime, which gets then disputed or swatted down. When will the world get a sense of what's actually in this deal? Do you have any sense on the timeline there?
The short answer is we don't know. The latest information that we have as it relates to the details of this agreement came from a senior administration official on Friday who briefed a small group of journalists. And within this, we got details on the timeline and how things will unfold. This is not immediate relief for the Iranians. They will have to adhere to their end of the bargain before they see any sort of relief for their country. But remember, it wasn't just the United States that had a say in what was taking place. It was also these Gulf countries like Qatar and Pakistan. Pakistan, obviously not a Gulf country, but certainly a mediator in all of this. But there were countries involved, and they had a say in how this would unfold, understanding that Iran is notoriously difficult to deal with at the negotiating table.
Mainly for them, they're losing a lot of money. They're losing a lot of fucking money by the Strait of Hormuz being blocked off, and then countless missiles and drones flying into the country, bombarding them. Mainly for them now, instead of telling the United States to finish the job by basically saying, well, when they say by finish the job, mean eliminate Iran completely. Now their language is like, just look, we just need a deal. Because we're all losing money right now with the Strait of Hormuz being closed. So now they want to get the blockade to succeed, and now they want to get a deal reached, and then they all want to go back to just like basically prospering in the country and rebuilding themselves up properly. So it comes down to finances. It comes more about the dollar sign, more it's about like pride. It's more just about financial issues than anything.
And this was a challenge for the Trump administration because this is a country that ultimately kept stepping back from the table. And every time the Trump administration offered an olive branch to Iran, they wouldn't take it. And we saw this last week. It was a moment that I would say was a turning point that actually led to this agreement taking place. President Trump was sitting in the Situation Room, and he was joined by Vice President Vance and his special envoys, Witkoff and Kushner. And they were at the table, and I was speaking with the president on the phone, and another phone rang inside the Situation Room, and it was the Iranians. And ultimately, the president left our call, answered their call, and they were asking him to stop the bombing. And ultimately he did. And he said, you have to sign the agreement and I'll stop the bombing. But this moment set things advanced. It advanced the conversation to a place that actually allowed this agreement to get signed. Because again, the Iranians, according to President Trump, were tapping the United States along. And ultimately, the United States, after the Apache helicopter was taken down by an Iranian drone, responded with heavy airstrikes that also included 49 Tomahawk missiles launched toward targets as close as 40 miles from the capital of Tehran. And this sent a very clear message to the Iranian regime. If you don't want to resolve this at the negotiating table, it will be resolved on the battlefield. And the Iranians can look at their Navy, they can look at the production lines for the ballistic missile and drone programs that exist in their country, and then they have a question to ask themselves. Is it worth it at this point? After Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, was killed, along with 40 other senior officials, the second tier of officials in Iran taken out. And again, it raised this question for the regime, is it worth it? And ultimately, they decided to take this diplomatic path, and according to President Trump and the Prime Minister of Pakistan, they have signed a deal.
Trey, former President Obama was on TV earlier today saying, you know, whatever deal the president is able to sign, that it wouldn't be much different than his deal, the JCPOA. Can you tell?
He's actually not wrong on that. I mean, I would think this deal's a little bit far better for Iran with the other one. I mean, I could say there's you could probably argue there was probably there was parts in the deal that were better for the United States and then they were better for Iran. But now this deal seems like it's just completely utterly in favor of Iran. So
tell us how this deal is different and how it is better.
So broadly speaking, the JCPOA deal negotiated under President Obama allowed Iran a path toward a nuclear program. Because when we talk about enriched uranium, and this is really important when we look at the difference in these deals here, and I don't want to give you too much of a lesson on enrichment, but it's actually quite important when we're talking about the Obama deal versus the deal that was just signed right now. During the Obama administration, it allowed Iran to continue enriching uranium. And the way that uranium is enriched, the uranium ore is actually extracted from the ground, and then through a chemical process, it turns into yellow cake. And then another chemical process, it turns into hexafluoride gas. And they spin that gas very rapidly in advanced centrifuges. And ultimately, the heavier particles go to the outside, and the lighter ones stay in the middle. And this is repeated over and over again until you get to a higher purity of enriched uranium. And to take enriched uranium from, let's say, 5 to 10% to 20%, ultimately to 60%, and eventually 90%, which is weapons-grade material, can be a matter of weeks, if not days.
you guys want me to stay on for 3 hours? I could go for 3 hours right now because we're about to reach the 3-hour mark right now. So I got to play. I was playing Get Off, but it's like, damn, I'm about to be on for 3 hours, huh?
And so allowing the Iranians to keep advanced centrifuges and then enrich uranium, eventually closer to weapons-grade material, set them on a path toward a weapon, because that is a process that is needed to create a nuclear weapon, even if they weren't doing it at that moment. This agreement does not allow the Iranians, according to the senior administration official, to keep any of their enriched material. And that means they're not going to be able to repeat that process in advanced centrifuges, and then once U.S. forces leave the region, increase the purity of the enriched uranium again toward a nuclear weapon. And so it's quite different in that regard. The sanctions relief is also different because the sanctions relief is contingent on the Iranians adhering to their end of the bargain.
You know, we hear about things like sanctions. For example, the amount of sanctions that have gone on Russia, the amount of sanctions that have been on Iran for a really long time, or sanctions on North Korea. And here we sit believing they probably have a nuclear program, if not a functional weapon at this point. And the reason why I bring that up is this seems like such a different scenario in the world than when the JCPOA was signed. For example, there have been years since February, well, there are months worth of direct attacks in Iran. If we go all the way back to Midnight Hammer, that was June 21st of 2025. For a year, we have attacked at will inside the borders of Iran when necessary or when President Trump felt like it was the right thing to do. Then you have the Abraham Accords. You have in February, just right after the initiation of Epic Fury, Iran attacks their Middle Eastern allies or their Middle Eastern neighbors. All of those things create a completely different scenario than the JCPOA, and I'd love for you to elaborate on that because I think that's the part of this that may not be written on a piece of paper but could create a completely different situation with this deal that may get ironed out than anything we've ever had before.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about these Gulf countries like Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, these are countries that the Iranians, during Operation Epic Fury, came out and said that they were friendly with, and then bombed their civilian population with medium-range ballistic missiles and drones. And so when we look at that at face value, it is a stark contrast to what we've seen from the Trump administration as it relates to those Gulf countries. These Gulf countries have interestingly been working together in a joint defense as a result of the coordination behind the scenes from the Trump administration. And some of that has to do with the trust that was built, actually all the way back to the agreement that was reached between Israel and Hamas inside Gaza to free the hostages and end the war there. And it's all connected because there was a moment where you had President Trump and you had his envoys in the region, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, go to Egypt. And it's a very interesting but long story. But the short story is that the president actually got on the phone to get the agreement across the finish line. And when this was taking place, you had his envoys in the region building trust between these Gulf countries because they understood that the next hurdle to peace was ultimately the Iranian regime that was dealt with during Operation Epic Fury. Guys?
Trey, thank you so much for bringing this breaking news to us.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox 1.
Cold as hell in here. All right, so let's get into J.D. Vance's interview that he did with Sean Hannity.
Welcome to Hannity, and we start tonight with this Fox News alert. In just one moment, we will be joined by the Vice President of our country. J.D. Vance is in studio with us. Great to have you. No topic off limits, including the historic peace agreement with Iran that defied expectations, got across the finish line, thanks in part to Amazon.com, Hannity.com, bookstores all around the country. And without further ado, Mr. Vice President, how are you?
Good to see you, Sean.
I don't get to see you in person a lot.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Okay, so you start off this life in Appalachia and very tough upbringing, very poor upbringing, difficult times, abuse at home. Your mom struggled with addiction. You have a devout grandmother. Now you're the vice president. You're 41 years old, and now you're negotiating what might be the path to peace in the Middle East for the first time in however many thousands of years. Not a bad life.
Not a bad life at all, man. Only in America. And I think that if you have a life like I've led, you have to have incredible gratitude to the country. And the best way to show that gratitude is just try to do as good of a job as humanly possible. That's what I write about in the book, fundamentally, is this sense that, you know, my life has been so charmed. In some ways, things have been a struggle. But in a lot of ways, man, I've just been so blessed. And there's this sense that God was always looking out for me. Even when I strayed from the path, even when I called myself an atheist, that faith that my grandmother had sort of imbued me with was always there in the background. And of course, it's an important part of the way that I go about my duties today, but it's just an important part of who I am. It fundamentally illuminates everything else about me. And hopefully people will pick up the book and learn a little bit about me and learn a little bit about my faith journey, and maybe it'll be useful to them.
Well, we'll get into that in more detail. All right, so let's talk about the Iranian deal.
Sure.
What frustrates me about the Iranians, Donald Trump says A, and somebody will come out, some aspect of that government, and contradict what the president said.
Yeah.
And they came out with, quote, a memorandum of understanding, which is what was signed, official signing on Friday in Geneva, and it contradicted a lot of what the president said. Any of that true?
No, it's not. So I've seen a lot of misinformation out there. I've seen $24 billion going from the United States to Iran. That number is totally false, totally made up. Fundamentally, what this thing does, Sean, as you got to appreciate is, number one, the Straits of Hormuz were open immediately. You already see oil prices coming down substantially, and I think they're only going to come down even further. Number two, it ensures that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. And number three, it does go and say, look, if the Iranians are willing to change their ways, if they're willing to behave like a normal country, stop trying to build a nuclear weapon, stop trying to fund terrorism all over the Middle East, then we are willing to actually fundamentally transform our relationship with them.
That is saying in there.
That's what the president has offered. Now, of course, we would need to verify that. We would need to see real progress and real action.
You know that's part of the deal?
Absolutely. It's written right there in the agreement, Sean. And here's the thing.
Actually,
yes,
not.
You're right. Sometimes when, information about this deal will leak out, you'll have somebody on a propaganda channel in that country, in Iran, who will say something that is...
Why do you think the hawkish Israeli crowd is mad about the deal? It's not written in there at all. That's why they're so mad about it. So obviously they're not going to stop funding Hezbollah. They're not going to stop funding the Houthis because Iran needs its influence in the region. And they do realize having their allies right there beside them is the best route to go, especially to basically deter possible Israeli confrontation at a later date. Because this is not over with. It's clearly not over with. Israel did not get its objectives completed at all. They're clearly not going to take this line down. They're going to want to continue this conflict again and pick it back up at some point.
Isn't true. I think it's sort of expected. It frustrates me too, but it's expected that some Yahoo is going to say something about the deal that is untrue. What really bothers me and frustrates me and is unexpected when the American media literally picks up talking points and propaganda from the RIGC that has no support in the text of the agreement that we've actually negotiated and no basis in reality. This is good for the American people. The Iranians don't get a dime unless they behave and change their behavior, and this means that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon.
When you say they don't get a dime, do they ever get an American dime, a taxpayer dollar?
No. So number one, first of all, they never get a dime of American taxpayer money, ever. Full stop. Not even close. Okay. What we have said is there's a lot of economic benefit in the United States relieving a lot of sanctions and welcoming them back into the world economy. There's a lot of benefit. They're not American money, but there's a lot of economic prosperity that can flow from that. What the president said to them is, we want you to be a successful country, but for you to be a successful country, you've got to give up on this threat. You've got to give up on this desire to have a nuclear weapon. And if you do that, the United States is willing to have a much better relationship.
All right, let me go to this. The number one report that I've been reading leading up to this interview tonight is that the Qataris are giving them $300 billion with the sign, seal, and approval of the U.S. The president did put out a truth denying all of it. Iran has agreed to never have a nuclear weapon, and the story that the U.S. is paying Iran $300 million is fake news. We are not giving them an American dollar, number one, true, and number two, did the U.S. ever sign off on the Qataris paying them that money?
No, we've not. The agreement says they are not getting a single dime of American money. That's just not what this is. What the agreement does say, Sean, is, again, if the Iranians behave, and if there are sanctions relieved, and if the Iranians are integrated into the world economy, we would invite other countries, not us, but other countries to invest in their country. That's fine, but only if they comply with the terms of the agreement. Really, we have an option here, right? The president of the United States has given us optionality, which is great for the American people. Step back for a second.
That's what I don't like, because like you're getting kind of conflicting things from JD Vance, then what the MOU is saying, then what the Iranians are saying. It's all conflicting. It's very head scratching. Like, who's really saying the truth in this regard or whatever? I'm more inclined to believe the Iranians in this regard, because the United States is like, they're trying to save face in some regard. They are trying to save face in some regard. So it's kind of hard to really think for a moment who's actually being truthful about this MOU. Because if you read the MOU, it's very cut and dry. I just read it on stream for you guys right now. If you want to read the entirety of the thing, I linked it in the chat below. But it's very clear that there Iranian assets, frozen assets, will be freed up once the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is lifted. Iran has agreed to lift it, and now ships are passing through the Strait of Hormuz like regular traffic, like their previous traffic timing during before the start of the conflict. So it's very clear that there's some dishonesty going on, and we don't really know who's really being truthful about what's real and what's not real according to the MOU. Because when you read the MOU, it's very cut and dry. They are supposed to get sanctions relief. They are supposed to get some form of reparations. After 60 days, they're going to start charging a toll on the Strait of Hormuz. And the United States has agreed to pay upfront frozen Iranian assets, at least half of that upfront.
Their conventional military is destroyed. Their nuclear weapons program is destroyed. The Strait of Hormuz is now open. Now we have two pathways.
Is it open toll-free?
It is open toll-free, and that's very explicit in the agreement. But now we have two pathways we can go down. Pathway number one is the Iranian economy continues to be strangled. We don't want that. That's not our desire. But in order for them to get pathway two, which is reintegration into the world economy, they have to behave like a normal country. It's a very simple principle, actually. And what's different about this than previous iterations of the Iranian government, previous negotiations, is one, the president's negotiating from a position of strength. But number two, we're actually talking directly to them. And I can't tell you, Sean, if 5 years down the road they're going to honor that commitment, because I can't predict the future. What I can tell you is if they don't honor their commitments, they don't get a dime from anybody, the United States ever, but a dime from anybody else either.
The president has told me many times, he said, I can go back to bombing and obliterate them in 5 minutes at any point I want. How important was it, the two attacks that took place last week, one after an Apache helicopter of ours was hit?
Well, what it did, Sean, is it showed that we were serious. That there really are two options here. There's the military option, there's the diplomatic option, and if they were not going to choose the diplomatic option, then the president still had military options to use. But it's not just that, Sean. One of the things the American media has totally underreported is you talk about the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranians try to close off the strait to try to choke off the world energy economy. The American media has totally underreported the fact that over the past 3 weeks, we've gotten more oil out of the Strait of Hormuz under the supervision of United States Central Command than we had the first 3 months of this operation. What does that mean? That means the Iranians' leverage was reducing by the day. That means that our position was growing stronger by the day. And I think that's why we've cut what is fundamentally a good deal for the American people, assuming the Iranians follow through. And if they don't follow through, there's no skin off our back. Nothing changes from where we are right now.
A lot of people are questioning why not release the memorandum of understanding. You said it will happen this week.
Correct. So there are some diplomatic protocols, Sean. There are some sequencing that the Pakistanis have been involved in this. The Qataris have been involved in this. And what the president has said is the agreement will come out on Friday. He may decide to release the agreement sooner than that. But we have this formal ceremony on Friday, and that's when the president right now wants to release the memorandum.
Let me get to this, because this is the most important thing. And the president has been most consistent on this point, and that is they cannot and will never have a nuclear weapon.
Correct.
How will we be able to verify that? Will we have American inspectors on the ground? What happens to the nuclear dust? Will it be degraded, or will it be removed? Will we be a party to that? Like, will it reflect what we did in Libya years ago?
So what we're going to do, Sean, is destroy the highly enriched material, the nuclear dust, as we call it, and we're going to do it with the Iranians. That's what the president has said. He wants us to work with the Iranians, with the international organizations, to destroy that stockpile of enriched material, because that does set them back a little bit further. We've already fundamentally destroyed their program, but that does set them back a little bit further, and that's important, of course, to the United States.
And they're agreeing never to enrich.
They're agreeing right now to eliminate the enriched stockpile, and if they don't get to a point where they agree to stop enriching, then they don't get the other benefits of the bargain. That's the way this is set up. Is a lot of the technical details we're going to figure out over the next month, over the next 2 months, but the basic structure is they can get a lot if they comply with the United States demands. They don't get anything if they don't comply with anything.
One of the more frightening things we learned in Epic Fury is the ballistic missile range. They can hit Paris, they can hit London. Does that have to come to an end?
That's part of not funding terrorism. They have to stop being a force for regional instability in the region, and if they don't get any of the benefits of the bargain. And that's what's so brilliant about the way the president has structured this, is he's saying, look,
according to a Trump statement, I saw a rerun. He says that Iran has a right to have ballistic missiles because other countries have ballistic missiles. So, no, answer that question. Apparently, no.
So many things that are possible for the people of Iran. Greater prosperity, greater economic integration with the world. But to get those things, they have to behave like a normal country. Stop funding terrorism, stop trying to develop a nuclear weapon. And that really is the trade-off here. It's fundamentally, the ball is in the Iranians' court, Sean, because we're better off regardless. Their nuclear program is destroyed, whatever route they choose. The Strait of Hormuz is open, whatever route they choose. Their conventional military is destroyed, whatever route they choose. This gives the Iranians optionality to either become a normal country or not. But the United States is in a much better position regardless of what they choose.
You expressed an optimism that kind of surprised me earlier today in believing that the relationship has changed. You referred to and referenced the fact that for the first time in 47 years, America is going directly to the leadership there, including hardliners and the more political aligned.
That's true.
That's true. We've never had this level of direct communication with the Iranian leadership. Of course, the previous generations of Iranian leadership are largely gone thanks to what's happened over the last few months. But there's something else that's interesting, Sean. You talk about hardliners and moderates. What's fascinating to me about their system is that we're seeing even people that I would have assumed are hardliners who are kind of saying, you know what, maybe it was a mistake for us to do the things that we've done over the last 40 years. Maybe we should turn over a new leaf in the relationship with the United States of America. As the president always says, Sean, do we trust anyone? No, we don't trust anyone. We do verify, and we do extend this hand and say, look, if you guys are willing to change, we're willing to change how we've dealt with you too.
Let's talk about any place, anywhere, anytime U.S. inspectors. That's part of the deal?
Yeah, that's absolutely something that we are negotiating over, Sean. That's one of the final details that's going to be figured out here. Is if you go back to the original Obama JCPOA, there were a couple of big problems with it. Number one, by the way, is that the Gulf Arabs hated the Obama deal. Why? Because they thought that it empowered the Iranians to be a malign actor. It actually enriched the Iranians while they were misbehaving. This deal, the Gulf Arabs love, because they know that this is the kind of deal that can fundamentally transform the Middle East. Another problem with that deal is that the inspections regime was effectively non-existent. There was a little bit there, but it was basically non-existent. This goes back to our fundamental principle here, that if they show verifiable commitment, and that means a real inspections regime, then they can get the benefits of the bargain.
Obama took a shot and said, I don't think this deal is any better than the deal we had before. The JCPOA was dramatically different than what you were describing here tonight.
And I'd ask the president, the former president, I'd say, Obama, why in the world, if it's the same thing, why is it that the Gulf Arabs hated your deal and they love our deal? They are the ones who are in the region. They know what it means to enrich the worst terrorist regime in the world, and they also know what it means to turn over a new leaf and to go to a different future. So I think President Obama, he should acknowledge that the people who are closest to this, they love the Trump deal. They hate the Obama deal, and that's maybe the biggest endorsement of this plan.
Okay, so I just want to just bear down. They're going to hand over the nuclear dust. They're agreeing to no nuclear weapons. They're agreeing to inspections. They don't get one U.S. taxpayer dollar. And, okay, you really believe that a regime that I would argue could not be trusted, I refer to it as a death cult, that what brought them to this point? What changed? Is it they're now at their fourth tier of leadership? What do you think changed?
I think it's a combination. First of all, I don't believe anything, Sean. It's very important. As the president has said, we have to verify. We're going to reward action. We're not going to reward words. But fundamentally what's changed is, number one, we're on the third or fourth generation of leadership. That is true. Number two, they've seen that the president is serious. They've seen that he's willing to exert that leverage and actually do what's necessary in order to force the Iranians to come to the table. And number three, Sean, this is important. It's underreported. Their economy has been in a free fall for a very long time. So you combine the president's leverage that he's put on them, you combine the new leadership, and you combine the fact.
Yeah, we didn't really help that either by destroying their actual dollar, the real. So that didn't help much either.
That their economy is in shambles, and I think that they see there's a real opportunity here to turn over a new leaf so long as they do the right thing.
So on the verification process, once we get along, they're either going to go along with the commitments they made or what is next. And what do you say to the people like me that have been very skeptical of the regime for all these years? Number one, state sponsor of terror, death to Israel, death to America. I'm skeptical. If this is all true, Reagan talked about this in '85. He said there might be an opportunity for peace in that region, and it might be all of these countries finally getting along. And you even expressed hope that that might be a result of this.
Well, again, I'll tell you, the Gulf Coast countries under the president's leadership, they actually feel that that's possible. They don't believe anything either. They're not certain. They're not going to predict what the Iranians are going to do 5 years from now, but they see real opportunity. So we're going to walk down this pathway. We're going to see how serious the Iranians are. And Sean, you ask, what if they don't meet these obligations? What if they don't do what they promised they're going to do? Number one, they don't get any benefits of the bargain. And as the president would say, we have all the cards. Their economy will still be in very tough shape if they don't get the relief that they need to get in order to make progress. We're still going to have incredible military might. We're still going to have diplomatic leverage over them. We have the cards, and if they don't honor the commitment, we'll figure out what to do when we get there.
So basically, the president, if I had to guess or interpret, I've known President Trump for 30 years, I would say that means go back and resume bombing.
It could. It could.
And he would. I don't think he would hesitate.
It could mean the blockade goes back on, Sean. It could mean a lot of things, but what the president has said is he doesn't want to do those things. He wants Iran to be a normal country. They've got to act like it.
Let me ask you this. This is more philosophical because I have found that, and I've known Donald Trump, President Trump, for 30 years, and some people have been trying to portray him as an isolationist. I'm like, well, he wiped out the ISIS caliphate, took out Soleimani, took out Baghdadi and associates, dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan, and committed to Midnight Hammer, Epic Fury, and Maduro. That's not an isolationist.
No, he's never been an isolationist. What he is, Sean, is I would say he has an America First foreign policy. He uses American economic and military power to pursue the interests of the American people. Now it's interesting, though, Sean. People always ask me, how do you make sure that the Iran war doesn't become a quagmire, like maybe some of these conflicts were back in the early 2000s? And I always say the way that you prevent that is that you do what Donald Trump is doing. You set clear objectives, you accomplish those objectives, and then you reevaluate whether you want new objectives or whether you've accomplished what you need to accomplish. And that's why the president has been able to do, think about it, very discreet, very successful military operations that are part of a broader strategy to make America better off.
What should Americans take away from what you were saying here today, the hope you're expressing that we turned a corner, this conflict can end, and what about other countries that may remain in conflict with them? Obviously, Israel would be one.
Yeah, well, look, if this deal works, and if we actually get the things that we expect out of this negotiation, then we're going to have broader regional stability and peace. The reason why our Arab allies, our Gulf allies are so excited about this is because they think this is a new day in the Middle East. But again, If it's not, then it's not. If the Iranians don't comply, then we're going to go back to the same relationship that we had before, where we have all the cards. I really do believe, if you think about this from the perspective of the Israelis, and obviously, we care most about the American people, but the Israelis have been good partners on a lot of this stuff. Our perspective is this has eliminated the Iranian nuclear threat. That's good for Israel. It's also good for the rest of the region. We've substantially weakened their economic and military might. That's good for Israel and also the rest of the region.
Well,
this deal is going to be good for everybody. It's going to be good for the whole world.
I could never understand after October 7th, if you extrapolate out their population in Israel versus ours, that's the equivalent of 40,000 dead Americans in a day.
Sure.
If Donald Trump's president, if J.D. Vance is president, 40,000 Americans die in a day, what would you do?
Go absolutely crazy. The American people would demand a significant response. I mean, we saw this on September 11th, Sean. Yeah. We knocked out 2 countries that were involved in terrorism purely because of 9/11. We have to respond to terrorism, but I think what the president has done here is very effective. He has, I think, defanged the largest state sponsor of terrorism. He's ensured they're never going to get a nuclear weapon, and now he's actually saying, you know what? Now that you're in a position where you don't have leverage over us, we have leverage over you. Let's make a deal.
Take a break. More J.D. Vance on the other side, live in studio.
All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews, the debates you won't get anywhere else. Like and subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday.
All right, so going to finish it off with NBC News. This is White House officials unveil details of 14-point plan with Iran. This is our main event right here, and then I'm going to get out of here.
Been listening to President Trump's news.
I'll probably be back tomorrow with a reaction stream.
News conference on the final day of the G7 summit in France. The president for speaking for over an hour, claiming that the Iran agreement will be signed shortly, potentially tomorrow or Friday. He said that he has sent a copy to Israel. The president also saying that maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has increased substantially, but warning that if a deal isn't done in 60 days, the U.S. will, in his words, go back to bombing. The president, though, not providing all that much substance in the details of this agreement between the United States and Iran. He also said that he does not think at this point that it's necessary for him.
Make sure you like the stream. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like the stream, share with your friends. Let me know how you guys feel about tonight's show. We're winding it down right now. I will be back possibly tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed today's stream. But yeah, give it a like, leave a comment. Let me know how you guys feel about tonight's show.
To sign this document, although he did leave open the possibility that may occur. Let's bring in NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez. He is in Geneva right now, traveling with the president. So, Gabe, at the same time that this was happening, we also had some other news happening as the senior White House officials outlined the details of this agreement between Iran and the United States. You were on that call. It was embargoed. We were not allowed to report it until the president was done speaking. Talk to us a little bit about what you learned in that call, because this is the most substance that we've gotten yet in terms of this deal.
Ryan, it truly was remarkable to hear senior U.S. officials speaking about the details of this memorandum of understanding simultaneously when the president was holding his news conference. But you're right, a senior U.S. official actually read the text of this memorandum of understanding aloud on this call. And I'm going through it now. What I can tell you is that the main point that the administration wants to emphasize is that Iran, as part of this MOU, has agreed not to produce nor procure a nuclear weapon. Of course, that was something that Iran had previously agreed to under previous agreements, under the one signed under the Obama administration, that it would only have its nuclear program for civilian purposes. But along with what we've been hearing with the administration when it comes to reopening the Strait of Hormuz and ending the U.S. naval blockade, some of the most controversial points here will be point 10. By the way, this memorandum of understanding, senior U.S. officials confirmed, does have 14 points. Point 10, it says the United States of America undertakes that immediately upon the signing of this MOU, the U.S. Department of Treasury will issue waivers for the export of Iranian crude oil, petroleum products, and derivatives. So basically, the thing that will kick in immediately once this is formally signed is sanctions relief for Iran. That has drawn widespread skepticism from even some of the president's allies. Some Republicans who are concerned that you're essentially rewarding Iran up front. A senior U.S. official on this call defended the sanctions relief by saying that essentially they'll be able to keep better track of any oil that Iran is selling to other countries. They'll have more visibility for it, and that's the defense that the administration gave. Point 11, the U.S. also undertakes to make more fully available the use of frozen or restricted funds and assets of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, such funds, whether retained to the original account or transferred, shall be made fully usable for payment to any beneficiary designed by the central bank. Central Bank of Iran. So basically, Ryan, the administration is laying out for the first time, reading this 14-point plan, this memorandum of understanding, that it claims that some of its points will only be given to Iran and act as rewards if they fully uphold their commitments as part of this memorandum of understanding. But Ryan, this might be seen by people who are hardliners here that the U.S. is giving up too much to Iran up front. The administration is arguing no, that is not the case, that this is only setting up this 60-day window to talk about specifics of the nuclear program. But again, we are learning for the first time the specifics of this 14-point plan that senior U.S. officials read on this call just as the president was speaking.
And Gabe, let's drill down on that, because when you talk about the potential of criticism that could come, particularly from Iran hawks, these are supporters of the president, supporters of his plan to invade Iran. One of the huge criticisms of the JCPOA, which was the original agreement that the Obama administration had hatched, was a similar provision, the unfreezing of existing Iranian assets. It wasn't necessarily direct payments from the United States government to Iran. That was heavily criticized by Donald Trump at the time. It's been heavily criticized by the administration even before this conflict began. But it does seem as though that's exactly what they're planning to do this time around in terms of bringing this deal. It's not about the United States handing over U.S. dollars, but it's about unfreezing assets that already belong to Iran.
Right, and look, that is a criticism that we do expect to hear in the coming days as this memorandum of understanding is dissected. But what the administration is trying to argue that it's it's only if Iran meets certain benchmarks, although it hasn't specified what those benchmarks are. The president today, in his news conference that he just had, and also previous events throughout the day at the G7, he tried to argue that he is very willing to resume bombing Iran if it doesn't uphold its commitments, if he's not happy with how this is implemented, Ryan.
Okay, Gabe Gutierrez, thank you for your reporting, and thanks for being on that call. Let's go now to our chief White House correspondent, Garrett Haake. He is traveling with the president. He was in the room. And Garrett, let's talk about the question that you asked President Trump, which I think is a significant part of this. He has been insistent that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon, but one of the key sticking points here was, would he allow a nuclear program of any kind to allow them to generate power or use it for their own domestic needs? You pressed him on that, and I think his answer was pretty revealing. Give us your take.
Yeah, I think so too, Ryan. And he didn't say no. I mean, look, overall, I found the president to be incredibly conciliatory toward Iran, both in tone and in specific content. It sounded at times like he was making a pitch for investment in Iran more than describing a document which end a war that he believes the U.S. was victorious in. On nuclear enrichment or on the idea of having a nuclear program, he did not say that they couldn't do it. He suggested that he doesn't think it's necessary, but he didn't say no. He basically said it would come down to common sense. Likewise, before that, I asked him about Iran's ballistic missile program. Remember, one of the 4 goals of Operation Epic Fury, which we heard from White House officials and the president dozens and dozens of times, was to destroy Iran's ballistic missiles and their capabilities to make more. Now the president says not only is that off the table, he thinks Iran should be able to keep ballistic missiles because their neighbors have them. He told me that they won't perhaps have as many as some of their neighbors, but he's not going to go about destroying them or even arguing that they should be decommissioned or removed. That's probably not going to sit particularly well with both Arab allies in this conflict or with Israel, which I think is another subplot from this whole press conference here. And the president, who at the beginning described Israel as a joint partner, continued for the second day in a row now to really strongly criticize Israel and the manner in which they've conducted their own war against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And so I think really for people who are, if you sort of jumped from February till now, this could be considered head spinning, the degree in which the president was now sounding conciliatory about Iran and their future and condemning the tactics of Israel, who started this conflict, as our day one joint venture partner, as the president described it.
Yeah, and I wonder too, Garrett, just your overall impression about the way the president has described this agreement, this kind of path forward. A couple of days ago, the White House was basically declaring that this was the end of the war. Now it seems as it's kind of entering into a new, maybe more solid ceasefire. It doesn't seem to nearly have the same sort of concrete declaration of the end of the war that maybe it had a few days ago.
Yeah, not at all, Ryan. I found the president had sort of a lack of emotional connection to this ceasefire. I mean, he said really 2 things out loud that, conspiracy theorists or skeptics have kind of mumbled about or talked about online. First, that, part of the reason he responds the way he does to some of these things is for the markets. That the stock market always reacts favorably when he talks about a peace deal as opposed to threatens more bombing. He said he's well aware of that fact, and it clearly influenced some of the way that he's talked about this deal. Second, right there at the end, he said, what a lot of people have sort of been whispering about, this idea that if things go well, he'll take the credit. If it goes poorly, he'll blame J.D. Vance and resume the bombing. There was not a question asked, and I think it's one of the outstanding ones that we still have, is, when do the American military forces that are arrayed around Iran get to come home? Are they going to be sitting there for months and months and months on end to ensure compliance here? Because the compliance structure, as the president described it, is basically more bombing at a time and place of his choosing. That doesn't say to me the war is over. That says to me the ceasefire is extended. The president wants to keep the talks and the stock market rally alive.
All right, Garrett Haake, terrific work inside the room, and that leads us to that topic about military intervention and how long the military could be in the region. Let's bring in our senior correspondent, senior Pentagon correspondent, I should say, Courtney Cubie. So, as Garrett said, Courtney, we heard the president say that the U.S. could still bomb Iran if it doesn't adhere to the agreement. What does that say about the military posture, and what could it look like moving forward? I would imagine it doesn't mean that these ships are coming home anytime soon.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like anything is going to happen while the U.S. and Iran continue this, I guess, next phase of negotiations for some sort of a final agreement. But there is tucked inside of this what the senior administration officials released that Gabe was referencing. Tucked in there is a reference to the fact that the U.S. military will draw back its presence from the region. That is a very vague statement, Ryan. It's not really clear if that means. You can see, look on screen right there. You see this map here. The USS George H.W. Bush Carrier Strike Group and the Abraham Lincoln. They're down at sort of the base of the Gulf of Oman there. They've been reinforcing the naval blockade that will immediately be lifted once this final agreement is signed on Friday, according to what we now have learned from senior administration officials. It's not clear, though, will they just pull back a little bit during the course of these final negotiations, or are we talking about decreasing the overall U.S. military presence in the region? I bring that up because this has been something that
Iran has wanted for decades. One of the arguments that they have had for getting involved in wars like the war in Iraq and providing funding and training and money and everything to these proxy groups is with an ultimate goal of pushing the U.S. out of the region. If in fact they've attained that from this agreement, that would be a huge strategic win for Iran overall. A couple other things. Gabe spoke about the sanctions relief that would immediately kick in. Again,
terrible
the naval
idea
blockade that's
for
been in
us.
effect now for weeks.
Terrible
that,
idea.
According to the latest memorandum of understanding, will also immediately lift that naval blockade. Just for perspective here, the U.S. has
on the outset, though, if we are going to take all of our forces out of the region, then let's take that and move all that to the South America region, and let's worry about taking over South America fully, and then we could prioritize taking Greenland. That's still up there on the table. I still support the idea of taking Greenland. I support the idea of taking over Cuba. Let's just go ahead and do it. If they want us out of the Middle East, fair enough. Let's prioritize our backyard. Let's prioritize getting Greenland. Let's prioritize actually things that are going to benefit us instead of things that are benefiting everyone else and not benefiting us at all.
Has turned around more than 140 ships during the course of that blockade, and they have disabled at least 9, meaning they have taken strikes, shot Hellfires and other munitions into the engine room of a number of these ships to disable them when they appear to be in violation of the blockade. There was one case recently where the U.S. fired on a ship that had a crew of Indian civilians on it, Indian mariners, and at least 3 were killed. We heard from President Trump met with Indian Prime Minister Modi this morning. There was no mention of that, but that has become a diplomatic issue between the two countries. Another thing that deals with the U.S. military as part of this agreement is the U.S. will and Iran will ensure that maritime traffic will be back at pre-war levels within about 30 days. And then it mentions that there is the possibility that Iran could have placed mines in the Strait of Hormuz that could impact that timeline. Well, we know, according to officials we've been speaking with on a near daily basis, just trying to keep a sense of whether Iran has placed mines, that the U.S. hasn't been finding them. They've not been pulling them out of the water, but there are still traffic lanes, maritime lanes throughout that Strait of Hormuz that the U.S. has not been able to clear. So that still could be an issue going forward. Notably, in the language, it talks about the possibility of Iran demining some of those maritime traffic lanes. The U.S. destroyed all of Iran's mining vessels. So I'm not really sure how Iran could accomplish that, or they would look to the U.S. and potentially other partners, as President Trump talked about other nations being willing to be involved in the Strait of Hormuz going forward. Finally, the other thing that I was really struck by in this, Ryan, is President Trump talking about missiles. Garrett touched on that. It was based off of his question. I was really struck by the fact that the president said missiles aren't the problem here. You'll recall that early on, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he gave this explanation for why the U.S. was engaged in this war, arguing that the Iranian conventional shield, including missiles and drones, provided an opportunity for Iran to potentially pursue a nuclear weapon. So basically, Iran could build a nuclear weapon and use their conventional shield of ballistic missiles and drones and other capabilities to defend against any kind of threat to that nuclear program going forward. But one of the main reasons that they went in, allegedly, was to destroy that missile program, to destroy the drone program. It is very, very notable to hear President Trump go back on that point now. That was one of the most coherent arguments that we got early on from the Trump administration about why the U.S. or how they believed that they could really disrupt any kind of...
I mean, he's flipped a lot of different stances throughout this entire conflict. Matter of fact, he's flipped a lot of stances on a lot of things for the last 2 years. Imagine you think this frustrating. He changes his stance so many times on the immigration policies and what we're supposed to do to prioritize deporting all these illegal aliens. But hey,
the nuclear program was by going after Iran's conventional capabilities. It now appears that they have backed off of that as one of their strategic goals here, Ryan.
Okay, terrific context from everything, Courtney. Thank you for all of that. Let's go to the region now and get a sense of what the response is there. We'll bring in NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley. He's in Tel Aviv. So, Matt, the one thing that we haven't talked about in the context of this, after hearing from the president and getting the details of this memorandum of understanding, is how Israel plays into this. We only know that Israel now has access to this document, which they didn't initially, and we still know that this conflict that they are engaged in with Lebanon continues to be a lingering issue. How could that impact the way things are where you're standing now? And should we expect that this means the conflict with Lebanon and Israel will also come to an end soon?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the gaping flaws to everything that's led up to this announcement, these negotiations, and now this memorandum of understanding is that Israel, which had participated and some would say had led the effort to start this fight against Iran back in late February, that they were nowhere to be seen during the negotiations. There were several days until apparently just tonight that the Israelis were actually given a copy of this memorandum of understanding. It doesn't sound like they're going to be participating in the signing ceremonies tomorrow or Friday. I've reached out to the Prime Minister's office right after we heard President Trump say that he had given over a copy of that MOU to the Israelis. They said that there's been no real change in that situation, so it sounds as though they haven't heard that the Israeli side has been given a copy of the MOU. But what we've heard from the president tonight is enough to really rankle a lot of Israelis who had been investing a lot in this war. We heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been facing terrible criticism over the past several weeks about what looks like the fate of a joint American and Israeli effort that now looks like Israel has been the big loser. The real flaw here is that while Prime Minister Netanyahu had very little involvement in any of these negotiations, he is in the best position out of anybody to completely undermine and destroy the ceasefire even before it emerges across the region. It's because of the fighting in Lebanon that this ceasefire has been stillborn on several occasions over the past couple months and weeks. We heard President Trump taking Prime Minister Netanyahu to task, calling him on some occasions, expletives, and just today, basically very gently, more so than he had over the past couple of days, chiding the prime minister for the way that the Lebanese military has been fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah. And once again, ruminating that the leader of Syria might be able to do a better job. But it's those questions of ballistic missiles that we heard from Garrett that really is going to vex so many Israelis who faced all of that retribution from Iran in the form of those ballistic missiles over the past year.
Okay, Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv, thank you for that. Let's quickly go back to senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez in Geneva. And to Matt's point, Gabe, based on what you heard as the administration outlined the details in this memorandum of understanding, how could it impact Israel?
Well, certainly, Ryan, look, I asked the senior U.S. official on this call specifically about Israel and this idea that Prime Minister Netanyahu had not been given the text of this memorandum of understanding. This senior official said that Netanyahu had not asked for it, but that the Israelis had been briefed on all of this throughout the process. So it may be a technicality. Maybe they didn't send the exact text of the agreement, but according to this U.S. official, Israel was briefed. Now, Matt was right that President Trump has been increasingly frustrated with Prime Minister Netanyahu and has taken him to task for his handling of the Lebanon situation. But this U.S. official said that the Israelis were somewhat on board, and while they were skeptical, they were looking forward to what the U.S. was able to accomplish here.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.
That's that right there. So call that one a night. Okay. If you guys enjoy that one right now, I'll be back hopefully tomorrow. If not, I'll see you guys on Friday. Have a good rest of your day. Well, have a good rest of your night. Actually, it's 1 a.m. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Maybe not. Maybe Friday. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.